what's up, everybody? Woo, we got it going on.
Rugged me, man.
I know, it rugged you, bro.
That was so annoying. That was like right at the beginning. The space is rugged. I was like, God damn it, dude! I just set up all the links, and it just exited out immediately.
I saw it.
Always happen on spaces. Always.
It literally said that episode was over. I was like, what? That's the shortest 8-second episode ever, bro.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to put out another tweet again. But GM to everybody. We got Leo. Leo's here today. That's awesome. Adam's got to join as well. Thanks for everyone joining. I'm gonna have to literally reshare this link again after that thing just died on me immediately. It's like, God, dude,
it was the ultra fast row. It was like start and you're done.
Never fails in this space. I'm becoming like the epitome of what I never wanted to be, which was a permanent Twitter Spaces host. I think I've done more Twitter Spaces this week than like in my entire life. But it is awesome because every time I do turn around, there's a new like 300 person Ordinal Spaces.
Yeah, bro. Everybody's getting Ordinal famous right now, man. It's funny to see these. I don't even know who half these people are, but bro, it's like you can pull in a space with 300-400 people. About just, this is what I mean, it often is the same thing. I talk about this in business all the time with people starting businesses and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, bro, the main thing is being on the right wave. If you are on the wrong wave, it doesn't matter how good your idea is or, how good you are at running a business or, crafting a business. If you are on the wrong wave, it really doesn't matter. And you can be on the right wave and be like not even great at it and still hit it out of the park just because you're on the right wave. And certainly Ordinals right now are like, dude, is there any better wave? This is amazing.
Hell yeah. Leo, man, GM, how's it going?
GM, glad we're surfing the orange waves together, guys.
Yeah.
Let's fucking go. Yeah, I do find it funny. Like I went on vacation for a week and very loosely was checking Twitter and stuff. And I come back and there's like this whole new cohort of like, I guess, wordfluencers, like writing these like long threads and just like posting spaces. And I mean, it's cool to see like, people are, getting onboarded like really in a serious way right now. So yeah.
By the way, did you copyright and trademark Ordfluencer? Because I think you were the one who coined that one.
No, I think I really wish I could remember who did it, but it was somebody else who said it. And I was like, shit, that's pretty good. I stole that. It might have been Charlie from Ordinal Hub, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun kind of making that transition into the Bitcoin ecosystem kind of almost full time. Still love the historical NFTs, still got the biggest bag, and we'll still always talk about them. But man, dude, this is the most fun I've had in a few years with some new technology. It reminds me like the early NFT craze that had happened.
I mean, you think about it, and obviously all the historical NFT discords, which we're all still in. I still go in there and check, but bro, it's just dead. I was actually gonna like put out a little post in mine and be like who does like gives me the thumbs up. Maybe you're gonna get something special in a couple of years when we come back, because like I know it's gonna be like me, Jake, Dogfather, maybe Leo. It's like there are 5 of us right now. It's funny to see these cycles, but when you're around for these cycles, that's what makes it even sweeter next time it comes around,
Yeah. I'm more than excited. Dogfather, GM, man.
Hey, GMs, I missed 2 shows. I was touching so much grass. my hands are big green, right? So spending some time with family. But still, I mean, I'm completely with you guys. I mean, the HNFT space right now is really quiet. So that's the best period if you want to accumulate a few grails at really nice prices. So I was silently trying to pick up a few rare pappies, starting a bit. So I'm now at 100. So,
wow.
But cheap ones. But you have to begin somewhere, right? And I think collecting rare pappies, this is kind of like a lifetime job, right? I mean, this is like 1,774, and some are missing and not available, and some are super expensive. But I mean, this is now the right time if you have a bit of spare cash. So I saw eThought grabbing a few really cool assets. This is now the right time, once in a while to pick up something, and it's exciting.
Hell yeah, it is. eThought, man, GM. I'm excited. We're gonna do the Hoarder's Corner a little bit earlier today, probably the second stint. But how's it going?
Yeah, good morning. Appreciate you you pushing me up today. I do got to jump off a little earlier than usual, but I just want to say you guys are all marathon runners, and much props. I think over the weekend there's another one, the Ordinals, Leo, Trevor. I'm pretty sure Adam was in there too, and I think it was like 8 or 10 hours.
Bro, dude, I had lunch, picked my kid up, and it was still on, and I was like, this is crazy, man. Jump back on. I did like a double session in it. It was amazing, man. Leo, what were you? I guess it was just the 10 million, right? You had to celebrate the 10 million.
I had to hold it down.
Yeah, the plan wasn't to do 9 hours, right? Like that was obviously I had shit I was supposed to do, like calls and stuff, but it's like you go on a space and you're just like the problem is I started it by saying I will be here until we hit 10 million. I assumed it would be like in an hour or two. So it ended up being 9 hours. And yeah, it was pretty fun. We had like 10,000 people, or I think maybe live, it was like 8,800 people come through. Like one of the bigger spaces I've gotten to be on. Appreciate you guys for coming as well. And I think it was a pretty chill time, just kind of hanging out. You kind of run out of stuff to talk about after a few hours, to be totally honest. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, that's when you're just like kind of spitballing, just random conversations. Then you kind of divulge and just become the entertainment spaces, which you typically see, and you kind of hate yourself after that. Like, God, what have we become? Reverend Flashback on YouTube says, "Hi, folks. Will you debate BRC30?" Yeah, actually, I have that written down. I just put out a BRC standards Twitter thread the other day. It got pretty good amount of engagement. And then right after I put it out, there was like 2 more that popped up right afterwards. This freaking space. I cannot.
No, I'm still waiting on my BRC 21 standard to be adopted, man.
Yeah. I did record an episode this week with Soul, and he was one that proposed that, which is one of the early Emblem co-founders, who's not part of the team anymore. So that was kind of interesting. Also recorded, dude, before I go back into this next topic, a little bit of alpha. I've been uploading my podcast episodes, the full episodes, to my podcast Twitter account, and the engagement on that has been insane. I don't know if Elon Musk is pushing like long form contents of like an hour long, but if you have a podcast, I highly suggest trying to upload it to your Twitter account. The one I posted with Randy yesterday has like 20,000 views, and even some of the smaller ones are getting at least 5, 6, 7,000, and the account only has 2,000 followers. So.
Dude, Twitter is the new YouTube, Jake. I mean, like we've kind of felt this for a while. It's like Twitter is just where everyone is. Like I personally like the Twitter DMs. I personally like the Twitter Spaces, the Twitter video, the tweets, like the replies here. The whole conversation is happening on this one app, and I don't know. It's like why you can branch out and do like Spotify and all these other things, but the reality is like everybody's here. Mm-hmm. So why not just publish here? To me, it makes so much sense to make Twitter your kind of number one platform.
Yeah, I kind of had this thought last night, and I was like, once Elon Musk opens up like crypto payments and tipping and has like a creator fund, I think having a second account, your business account, whether it's for a podcast or for your crypto product, that's going to be where you're going to can generate a lot of revenue streams. So I'm going to start trying to tweet that Jake's guest list Twitter account, which is in my bio. Kind of like a YouTube page in essence, and kind of see where that goes from there, because the engagement on that has been quite wild.
Well, you guys look at I just pinned a tweet up top, which is like I created this little video of like how I want functionality to work on Twitter, with video, which is the same way as I want, as Spaces run right now, which is it basically lives at the bottom of the app. And right now video sucks in that, for example, if I want to watch Jake's pod, I basically have to stay on that page, right? I can't scroll around Twitter while I'm watching the video. So yeah, go get, if you like my idea, tag Elon, and maybe, God help us, maybe one day we get that where the video would basically pop out and just like live at the bottom of the screen. You know, I think it's just like when that happens, then Twitter video will really pop. I mean, it just needs that functionality.
The one thing I noticed with the episode I posted yesterday with Randy, which by the way, I highly recommend listening to. Those guys at Ordinals Wallet, they just get it. They completely understand, and just listening to them carry their experience from building on Bitcoin SV to Bitcoin and Ordinals, it just makes so much sense of why they're finding so much success, because they've been using larger blocks for a few years. One thing I noticed though with the podcast episode is people would like watch. My big question was, is somebody going to sit on Twitter and listen to this for an hour? And there was a handful of individuals, you could even go there and see, where they were like live replying as they're watching the episode. So there was like some accounts that had responded to that post like 4 or 5 times, and you could tell they're like commenting as they were like live watching it. It was kind of interesting to see. But this first topic that we're going to bring in is it's a little bit touchy, but I think it's important to kind of cover what's been going on with this. I found myself a little bit in the middle of it yesterday, trying to just, poke some fun at it, and maybe it just like made the situation worse. But it seems like there has been a conclusion that's been reached, at least for now. And so we're going to dive into the world of Bitcoin stamps and the civil war that was kind of going on for a little while. So kind of a backstory. If those that don't know, Stamps is an NFT protocol leveraging counterparty and was it alphanumeric assets, which is basically this asset that does not have an XCP fee. So if you want to go create something on counterparty with a name, if I want to go create the Jake Gallen token on counterparty, I have to pay, I think it's like 0.5 XCP, which is really, it's like $5 or $10. But it's like that additional layer of friction that you have to go through. It helps with spam and a few other things.
Makes you buy a shit coin, right? If Casey was going to talk about it, yeah.
Yeah, and it was originally burned with Bitcoin. So people had to originally, in 2014, take Bitcoin, burn it, and then you got XCP on the other end. So Stamps protocol, right? They instead of inscribing data into the Satoshi, they basically inscribe data into the UTXO set, which makes it unprunable in essence, right? I think they call it Adam the stamp grandfather because he's like hanging around. I think isn't that, I forget who gave you that name. Somebody said that,
they were giving Trevor that name, and then they asked, well, what should Adam be called? And I was like, well, not grandmother, I'll tell you that, bro.
But yeah, so moving on from that, and then after Stamps found some success, I believe it's over 50,000 stamps, something called SRC20 began to surface, which is like the Stamps version of BRC20. And that took off really quick. And there was, I think, thousands that were being created per day. This caused some controversy within the community between some of the dev team and some of the early counterparty community members calling it spam because there's no XCP fee. So you essentially could go just like at an unlimited rate. You just have to pay the essentially the inscription fee for it because there was a service who was providing it. So you have Mike, who created the Stamps protocol. And then I forget who runs the SRC20 inscription service. It's not Mike. I don't know who it is. So you kind of have these two things happening at once. And then some of the devs that have been leading counterparty for quite some time had some pushback. And this spiraled down. This started about 2 or 3 weeks ago. This spiraled to some of the maintainers of counterparty or of XChain. Mentioned that they are going to start omitting SRC20 from XChain. And so you would have the SRC20s in your wallet, but it did not show. And then 2 weeks later and up over the last week, it really started accelerating in this chat called the Counterparty Dev Chat. There's like 100 people in there. And it got quite heated up to the point where they were threatening to fork Counterparty. And I think it was actually Stamps would have remained maintain
the traditional counterparty. Yeah,
maintain the traditional.
We could consider the traditional devs like JDog and Joe Looney and stuff would have forked Counterparty, which is like crazy, right? It's crazy to think of.
Yeah. And so I saw this heating up a lot more. I actually saw the Rare Stamp, or this rare, I think it's called Stamp News Twitter account, had posted a conversation from that thread of, I think it was like 2 days ago now, of them saying they're going to start removing stamps from Counterparty. And so I posted a tweet that kind of was like just trying to highlight the situation. I'm going to show it up here on the screen in a second. And I woke up to some frustrated text. Here you can see it. It's that, what's this guy's name? Andre something. It's the one where he's like shooting the dude in the chair, and it's like Counterparty's the one with the gun, Stamps is the one getting shot, and then it says, "Why does nobody pay attention to us?" And it got a ton of engagement, 23,000 views. And I woke up to J-Dog being a little frustrated, asked me to take his podcast episode down that I had recorded with him. And it was the only podcast episode he's ever recorded in 8 years. So, I felt a little bad because I was just trying to like have some fun. And it just kind of made a lot of frustrations accelerate.
By the way, it was a hilarious tweet. I'm going to pin it up top. I mean, whether or not, I try to play the middle ground on this as well, because, I totally respect what J-Dog's done, basically keeping Counterparty alive for these last years by himself. Anybody who's in the historic NFT space loves J-Dog. It's not, anything against J-Dog. Obviously, you don't have no bad feelings to J-Dog. But the meme was so funny. It really was hilarious, bro. It's like at some point for me, it's like, all right, guys, can we just figure this out? It's a dude, fork it so we could do Stamp Party or whatever party, or let's just kind of like get this going. So I started talking to J-Dog, and apparently there was like some information that I was missing as well. And so we'll get into a little bit of this debate right after I explain it. And so he had never recorded a podcast in 8 years. It took me a long time to get him on the show. He asked me very politely, actually, to take it down. And it was because in the episode, he showed support for stamps. And now he said he does not support stamps, and they're ready to remove it from the platform. So I went into the chat, and I told him, I said, dude, you're my boy. I created the meme. On Counterparty, we're all memers, right? So there wasn't supposed to be any offense taken. I was kind of like trying to document the situation. So I went into the chat and told them, like, hey, it's getting heated in here. I think we should take this either private or public. I'm happy to mediate either or. J-Dog accepted, and he said that he would happily go on a spaces where he can kind of air out his frustrations that had been happening over time. The Stamp side was not willing to do this at all, it seemed. And so I think I don't know if it just made it worse or kind of accelerated the conversation. And so I kind of sat back and told them, me and Adam are here to objectively moderate this if this is something we need to do, whether it's private or public. And then last night, maybe about 12 hours ago, J-Dog said that he just wants to separate stamps from the SRC20 protocol. I think he actually likes stamps, honestly. I think he was more frustrated he called it spamming the network. And he said that the people who were running the SRC20 inscription service was profiting off of this spam, and that they were not willing to work with them after J-Dog had previously discussed forking it or creating a new SRC protocol. I think it was called like SRC21. And last night, the SRC20 services accepted and said that they will halt SRC20 inscription services until they come to an agreement on what a better protocol is or kind of what it is. And so now we sit in this current situation about 12 hours later. And I'll have some of the tweets on the screen so you can kind of see like live time what was going on. But the question becomes like, what is really going on here? What does spam mean? And so for me, it was this question of,
is spam a concern aesthetically? Like, do you not like spam because it just looks bad, right? You open up Xchain and it's just like a bunch of numbers and letters. Or is it because there's something else to it? I know J-Dog's been running Xchain or Counterparty. Literally, he's been part of it since the beginning. So there's something there internally that, is probably a little bit more also that we probably don't know. He also had mentioned on the podcast that we had recorded that recently he had enacted a fee on free wallet for transactions because of some increase in the server costs. I guess Counterparty or the Xchain exists on AWS. So to that degree, I don't really know either. I don't think it is a money thing overall. But I would like to start with just like an open discussion of like, what is spam and like where do we go from here? I know Dogfather has his hands up. He's pretty tied into the community. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I think it's also some fundamental disagreement here. So what you can do on Counterparty is that you issue one token, let's say 21 million, the usual SRC20 amount, and then you can trade it back and forth. It's just a token, right? Typically it's a named token because it's a bit cooler. So what SRC20 is doing is basically emulating what you can do with the regular Counterparty token, but now you need to issue always a new asset if you do a transaction. So this is definitely way more inefficient rather than just having a token, one token that you trade back and forth on the DEX or via dispensers. So I think that is one fundamental concern that the dev team have, that, look, we have fungible tokens, we don't need that SRC20, and it's more efficient, and it's not clogging up our current infrastructure, which is, it is already kind of like crazy workload that these guys are having. So it's a small team of 2 or 3 people who are running everything. Let's say Doge Party, Counterparty, everything. They don't need this extra work of someone who is just creating thousands of new assets. To do something you can do way more efficient just with individual tokens. So I think that's something one needs to understand.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is, and the second point is that, and then the second point is that I think Counterparty's idea to have numerical tokens that cost nothing to accept, the BTC fee, is something to try out the infrastructure, to try out the wallet. It's not meant to be used on a regular basis, let's say in the number of thousands a day, because then you're not paying anything, to in terms of XCP, which is the internal token. So it's not meant to be like that. So it's kind of like, I think the dev team feels like now they're being gamed and they need to change the rules. I think that's also something we need to understand. And I think with that in the back of your mind, you may understand their feelings and also their emotions and their reactions a bit better than looking just at, okay, some people are playing around and then some others don't like that. So it's not that simple.
Yeah, it's it was getting pretty hot in there. You saw, I was surprised. I didn't know that Joe Looney actually had like a hard stance on it as well. I thought he was a big fan of it. Interesting to see kind of like the power negotiations happening as well. I've read just like Chris Vought's book on negotiation and, being an entrepreneur, you kind of have to have some strong negotiation skills. Generally what you do, it's just like a strategy. It's called an anchor. When you're having a negotiation where you just take the farthest kind of threat, right? Or you take the strongest pitch so that when you come to the middle, you essentially get what you want, right? And to me, just looking at it from the outside, again, I'm not in the inside conversations of these, right? You basically group SRC and SRC20 and stamps together to get rid of SRC20, right? Because again, in the podcast, J-Dog had mentioned that he was a big fan of stamps and that he liked it. And I think what a lot of the frustrations were for community members was, it felt like this was Counterparty's moment with stamps. It was in the news again. It was on Twitter. There's now teams actively building infrastructure kind of around it, right? You have Rare Stamp protocol or the Rare Stamp marketplace. There's explorers that were popping up. usually when there's money, then builders and developers are going to come in and build support around it. And I'd seen in some of the comments, people were very just frustrated because they're like, oh, we're going to get more explorers for Counterparty. We're going to get new experiments, new types of tokens. And I think that's kind of where some of the community sentiment was at the time. Adam, what do you think happens next?
Yeah, I think in that way it was a missed opportunity. And granted, what Dogfather said there is absolutely true. Like it's nonsense in a lot of ways, and nonsense to use it that way. But dude, we've seen again and again, like nonsense sometimes wins, and in that way, I'm bummed out about it. I've made that pretty public that I'm bummed because I think it was one of these real opportunities to use the protocol, or in a way that wasn't intended, that wasn't efficient necessarily, but at the end of the day, got people excited. And I think developers often, I'm not saying JDog in particular, but just generally, developers don't understand this side of marketing and adoption, that often what you build and think should be used in X way actually ends up getting used in Y way. And that, you might, to shut that down because it's inefficient and because it causes you more work is, for me, it's missed opportunity. And opportunity, like we see how often this comes along, right? It's once or never, or if you're lucky, I mean, this was like a second chance for Counterparty. And I think like it's probably ball dropped, to get this like widespread understanding and awareness out there. It's probably not going to happen now, unfortunately.
Yeah. My question is just like, when it comes to spam on Counterparty, because I don't know the system intricately, is there some sort of like technical repercussions that could happen? Like, could that spam break Counterparty in a sense? I don't actually know that, because if it's like just like an aesthetic thing, right, where it just looks ugly, it's hard for me to kind of back that. But it feels like there's more to the story that's maybe just not being said in the public or kind of shown. We do have. Oh, hold on. Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, usually in these things, like 95% of the situation it's not what people are saying. What people are saying is the kind of points on the political level. I pretty much align with what Adam's saying here, where like, probably what's happening is, you have a, fungible token protocol, which is what Counterparty is. And somebody comes along and makes like another competing fungible token protocol. If you have bags in one version of the namespace and there's this new namespace that kind of pops up, it's fairly obvious what happens, right? Like, you're going to be incentive aligned to be against that new namespace. And then there's also this element of control. The reality is, like, we've talked to a lot of these kind of early developers, and I'm not going to say names, but we can all think of very lovely examples where somebody creates this thing, and when you put something on a blockchain, like, you kind of have to understand you're signing the rights away to the whole world, right? It's not yours anymore. You don't get to. You can go around, doing all of these like political games and sending people legal documents, and you can do that whole game, and it's actually somewhat effective. But it's not the ethos of the space, and you end up kind of looking like you don't understand what's happening here. And like, ultimately, I think it kind of hurts your reputation to be on the side of trying to just exert control of whatever something is. If there's let's just imagine two different. I mean, we're actually seeing it play out right now, like two different models for creating like an ecosystem. We saw this with Bitcoin and Ethereum. You have the Bitcoiner model, where it was like, we encourage developers to do nothing except this very specific set of things that we have anointed. And pretty much that's what you can do on Bitcoin, is these like very small set of things. You have this little area we're going to let you work with. And on Ethereum, it was like, doors open, try some crazy stuff, do DeFi, do NFTs, general purpose blockchain. Venture capitalists can, flood billions of dollars into the market. Tens of thousands of developers come and build stuff. You try thousands of crazy experiments. I think it was fairly obvious if that just continued the way it was. Like, in my opinion, that's all that matters. Like, Ethereum would have eventually flipped Bitcoin had Bitcoin kept that mentality forever. So to me, it's like the same thing here with Counterparty and Ordinals. You're seeing two examples. One is essentially, this kind of like, you basically want to capture the developers. Like that's the absolute number one thing here. And if you don't capture the developers, it's going to be really, really hard to kind of have your ecosystem like blossom and be healthy, because then you're not going to have capital flowing into it. Basically, everything you could have done, like I think you could probably go back in time 4 months ago, and Counterparty could have had a pretty clear playbook to basically, attract a few developers to come in here. And it was starting to happen, I think, with SRC 20, with stamps. And you were starting to see for the first time ever, like some actually interesting clients get built on top of Counterparty, right? And, it kind of seems here like it's the old crowd who, seems to have no issue using like Xchain website and all these old tools that like, they just don't want anything to change. They're like, if you've ever lived in one of these like very like small towns and, Google wants to come in and build their headquarters in the small town, all of the like old people in the small town, like go to the town hall and like have a huge protest and don't want any change in their cute little town that of course now everyone wants to live at, including like all of these like young developers want to come move in and change everything. So yeah, you either grow with the times or you kind of fade into oblivion. And in my opinion, Counterparty is, going to stick with that narrative of being this old, historically kind of interesting asset, and they're not going to probably culturally look like they're going to move into that Ethereum model of things. They're going to go to that Bitcoin model of things where we don't want change, and that's okay. It'll be the Counterparty that we know and love, and it probably won't necessarily evolve with the times. And if that's the culture that seems to be winning out there, like people will build that stuff on Ordinals and other ecosystems. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. We do have J-Dog up here. So first, J-Dog, appreciate you for coming on stage. We haven't heard you publicly voice what's been going on. And I'd mentioned earlier before you joined that I had tried to mediate a public spaces and you happily accepted and the other side did not. So thank you for coming up, and would just, like to hear your side, or at least explain some of the things that maybe is not being said publicly that should be.
Sure. I'm not really interested in any one, side versus the other.
Mm-hmm.
I think painting conversations like that is silly. And like I said in my interview, I'm all about experimentation, all about people playing around and doing whatever the hell they want on Counterparty. Not at all about limiting it. I thought Bitcoin stamps came along, and I'm very, very supportive of it. It's awesome. Yeah, we could have been able to do this stuff on Counterparty for years, but Mike and Space came along, created a new use case for it. Clearly, there's a lot of excitement about stamps. I think stamps is amazing. I think Bitcoin stamps is awesome. So let me put that out there first and foremost. It's not about stomping on innovation or limiting anything at all. My only objection, and what's been playing out behind the scenes for the past 4 weeks, is, I'll give you the quick version. BRC20 came out. From my perspective, this is what happened. The quick version. BRC20 came out. The Bitcoin stamps guy said, "This is cool. This is new. We want to stay relevant, so we're going to do SRC20." Totally on board with it. That's great. They want to do it on Counterparty. I'm still on board. They didn't engage with the Counterparty community at all about like, hey, we want to do this on Counterparty. How can we do it in an effective way? Which is fine. No big deal still. But the way they implemented it is essentially spamming numeric assets for every single asset on Counterparty. So every single time somebody goes to mint or print supply or whatever, it's creating an unusable token on Counterparty, which again, it's not a huge deal, but when you scale this up to now a database that has only had 150,000, assets created over the 9 years, now we're creating 20,000 entirely unusable tokens within Counterparty with no ability to use any of the features. You can't, if you're creating a token and you're not issuing supply, you have no way to use any of the features of Counterparty. You can't put the token in a dispenser. You can't put it on the DEX and trade with it. You can't send it back and forth. So there's essentially no reason to issue an asset if you can't do anything with it. What's been playing out in the background is me understanding what's going on, trying to reach out to the SRC20 devs and say, hey, this is not the way to implement it. Can you pause this and let's do it in a better way. I didn't get any engagement back and forth, so I went and wrote the BTNS, which was basically just a spec saying, hey, if you want to do this, you can do it on Counterparty using the broadcast system. Here's how you could do it. Didn't get any real engagement. Finally, I went and said, okay, here's this SR21 spec that I've written for you. If you want it, it's yours. Take it, use it however you want, adjust it. But please just use Counterparty responsibly using the broadcast system. They've essentially ignored that and just continued on with their project, saying, well, we're earning money and we don't want to stop the excitement, which I totally get. I understand that. But the frustration has been weeks and weeks and weeks of trying to get engagement. And the only way to finally get engagement up from the other side is all this fork drama nonsense. And then it's unfortunate that it's being painted as, oh, well, it's a small group of guys that really love their platform and they're trying to kick everybody else out and not have development on it, because that's the exact opposite. If you look at our actions, we have taken a very, very calm approach. We have not put out a fork. We have not done anything to stop stamps. We are actively engaging in discussions. So it's very frustrating to be putting all this time and energy into trying to help and reach out to developers and say, this is how you could do it. And then have not only that be rejected, but then have the larger ecosystem painted as, well, these Counterparty guys don't want development and they're just this old system that nobody wants to use, because it's not the truth. We want developers. We love developers. We do everything we can to support them. And all of this anger and frustration between the two communities is really just not productive and silly, I think. So I'm rambling and I will stop, but that's the quick version of what's been going on.
And
no, that's totally fair. I guess the main question would be, like, even if and I agree with you completely. Like SRC20s use Counterparty in, like, darn near the least efficient way possible. And I think we were talking with Joe on a space, and he was like, well, you understand, stamps, they're not the least efficient way. There are other less efficient ways, to use the Bitcoin blockchain if we want to go there, right? And was said with kind of a wink and a nod. But I mean, even if these are, and I think we all agree, these are terrible kind of efficient, in the sense of efficient ways to use Counterparty. This is a terrible way to use it. But that said, I guess the pushback point or the point for clarification that people would want from you is like, so what? Like, why can't that be allowed, or why does it have to be fought against so vigorously?
Sure. There's two reasons. Really, it boils down to a database impact, which is minimal right now. We're trying to deal with it and say, hey, let's use Counterparty responsibly so that we can grow this thing up to millions and billions of records and still be able to use the database in a meaningful way. If we use it if it's a free for all and we just use it however we want, it's going to get really, really messy.
Oh, good. You can curse, man. You can curse.
That's thing number one. Thing number two is really, sorry, can you ask your question again?
We're just wondering, assuming, and we can all agree, it's a very inefficient way to use Counterparty.
Yeah.
But why vigorously fight against inefficiency when you're getting traction from a community?
Right. We're not fighting against inefficiency. I don't think I'm just trying to, and it's not me. Be clear, I haven't done anything. It's the larger community that guides all this. But why? We want responsible usage on Counterparty. We're not stomping on stamps or anything. We don't want to put a numeric fee on, because we see the value of being able to just do stuff on Counterparty without the need for XCP. We don't want to limit that use case. But we do need to be able, if we're going to have this free way to use tokens on Counterparty, we need to have it used in a responsible way, or we need to bring that token in line with the way that the rest of the tokens are used in the system, which is an XCP fee on them. We don't want that. I see the value in being able to use Counterparty with just Bitcoin. But if everybody uses this one free kind of way token because it's the cheapest, and they use it as a free for all, it's going to mess things up in the database, make it more unmanageable, and it's not ideal. And so let me be clear, I don't want to stomp on innovation, and we don't want to put a fee on numerics. We just want All of this is just to get true engagement with the other side and say, hey, let's really stop blowing smoke at each other and work on a solution so that we don't have to put a fee on stamps, and that we are pivoting SRC to something that is either sustainable on Counterparty, or if you guys want to go off and have it be your own thing with the new wallets, we're supportive of that. But let's work together, not pit each other against each other.
And talking about like innovation, there's been two different terms that have been thrown around, and you also had gone off. I'd read some of the previous text before. There was a mention of SRC21, and then you also had created BTNS. What would not, and I had mentioned before that the SRC20 services have been halted because there was a request to kind of separate the two. What is the more efficient way to do this? Is it SRC21/BTNS, or is it something that hasn't been created yet?
I can't speak for exactly what the SRC20 devs' goals are, so I can't say what the most effective way for them to do it is. The most efficient way on Counterparty to do this is just to broadcast. Like, they're essentially just taking some string and coding, like some JSON, and coding it and broadcasting that string, and they just want to write it to the blockchain. So the best way to do that is to just use the broadcast feature, which just does that. Take some string of text and broadcast it to the world.
Okay, cool.
And the broadcast. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, J-Dog.
Sure. Real quick background on the stuff you were asking about. The BTNS broadcast token naming system was born like 3 weeks ago as kind of just a, hey guys, this is how you could do it if you wanted. And then SRC21 was kind of written as like, hey, here's what you could put out using this new system if you wanted. But then as I got, less and less engagement and stuff, and I kind of played around with BTNS more, I was like, okay, if we're going to do craziness, then let's go ahead and I figured out the BTNS is essentially a way to create tokens really quickly on Counterparty and play with the features of Counterparty way faster than Counterparty development moves. So by using broadcasts, I can essentially duplicate all the Counterparty features and add new functionality on top of it within a few weeks. So instead of having just dispensers that only activate with Bitcoin, you can now have dispensers that activate with BTNS tokens. You can have dispensers that activate with Counterparty assets. You can have dispensers that then activate and trigger sub-dispensers. So you can make a payment of Bitcoin to one BTNS dispenser that then triggers the token and goes to another dispenser and another, and down to like 25 sub-dispensers. So BTNS, for me, is just a way for me to play around with the Counterparty features, which is kind of why I named it BTNS 420 and made the logo have a bong on it with me. And it's not to be taken seriously. It's not to be like, hey, this is the new thing, pile all your money into it. It's just screwing around with tokens and playing around with functionality. Sure, some people are going to do some stuff with it, but it's just experimentation. So SRC people should not see it as a threat or me trying to take over anything. It's just playing around with Counterparty tokens.
One final question from my end, and this was discussed. It was around the term of the term spam. Does spam increase server costs, or is that also more, or is there an aesthetic component to it, to where, because when you open up Xchain and you just see like a bunch of numbers and letters, is there a component to the disagreement that it clogs and makes Xchain look ugly? In essence, is there any component of that to this? And then also, does it increase server costs on the back end?
Right now, no, there's no increase on server costs. Xchain still runs across 8 load balance servers. And I still have room to grow, a lot more. But yeah, it does have an impact on database performance longer term scaling out. So it's not a super big issue now, but if we let the insanity go on for another year, then we're having an entirely different conversation. But yeah, it does have an impact. The impact is not seen yet because it has not gone totally out of control yet. And me limiting the viewing of those numerics on Xchain is just a personal choice. They're all still in the Counterparty database. I could flip a flag and display them, but my personal choice is, if you can't use Counterparty with these tokens, then why show them because I'm here for Counterparty.
Got it. Cool. Just wanted to make sure. Again, appreciate you for coming up here, man. I also noted that when you had reached out to me yesterday and I had took the podcast down, that you had agreed to come on to spaces, either private discussion or public discussion, and the other side was not willing to. Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, I love that J-Dog's like up here talking. Like, I genuinely think it gets super toxic when you have these conversations and just like chats. It just when people are writing it, people end up just reading things the wrong way or saying things the wrong way, and it's very unproductive, to be honest. I think you have to pretty much hop on a call with people, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be public. It's probably better to just be on a private call. But yeah, J-Dog, much respect for what you do. Like, I don't think I even need to say that. I think everybody here has massive respect for you. I'm kind of curious, like, long term, what's your vision? Like, where do you want Counterparty to go in 10 years? Like, what is your goal with Counterparty? I just want to kind of understand where your head's at and, like, how you're thinking about getting to that goal.
I don't consider myself the thought leader for Counterparty. I really just consider myself the guy who loves it enough to keep running stuff for years when nobody pays attention to it. So I don't consider myself as the direction leader of Counterparty. It's kind of like whatever the community comes up with and says, hey, this is the direction we want to go. We think this is going to be something cool. We'll go in that direction. As far as features I'd like to see, I've wanted to get a virtual machine in Counterparty for years. We did Ethereum virtual machine in Counterparty like a few weeks after it was released. So we could put Ethereum on Counterparty today. But we don't want to do that. Like, we don't want to just put the same thing out there. What I would like to do, and I keep saying we, I need to say I. What I would like to do is put out a virtual machine where you can write not Solidity, you write your code in JavaScript, compile it to bytecode. And the difference here being that you would not have to be a security expert than rolling out your smart contract like you have to be on Ethereum. The Counterparty has hard-coded features that have been working for years: dispensers, send, DEX orders. So the idea here is you have a VM that has those base features in it, and then you just layer your additional logic in the smart contract on top of those hard-coded features, and play around. So that's what I would like to do, is have 3-4 months of uninterrupted time with Javier to focus on building a virtual machine for Counterparty. It will not come to Counterparty first. It most likely will happen over on Doge Party.
Oh yeah.
Well, to me, that is a very compelling vision. Like, and to be honest, like, to me, my 2 cents here, not that you asked for it, would be that is, like you would be a great person to build this. I think it seems like a really cool experiment to at least try. I think you probably get a lot of usage. I would tend to say, like, go, I don't know how you feel about venture capital, but I think you could take that vision, go raise venture capital and just build it, and probably have a really, really cool thing happening with Counterparty that could kind of catalyze the next era for Counterparty. Again, if that's where you want it to go, if you want it to kind of evolve and continue to grow. Because I do think very much that, you are, whether you think of yourself as a thought leader or not, people value your opinion and kind of value what your vision for Counterparty is. And if that is to have some sort of smart contracting general purpose aspect, which I think seems like it's in line with kind of the earlier visions as well, it's been, a long time, right? And to me, it's I don't think now's an incredible opportunity to just say, we're going to take this seriously, and we're going to go out and seriously build this vision. Because, I think there's going to be infinite work maintaining Counterparty and keeping up with the latest, SRC20, I promise, is not the last thing like this that people are going to try on Counterparty, right? So, Casey, didn't like, Yuga coming to his protocol. Casey didn't like, BRC20 coming to his protocol. Vitalik probably doesn't like Ben.eth and Poly dropping these tokens and stuff. They all came to the same conclusion, which was just you have to just kind of let go, let developers, let people do stuff, even if it's objectively bad, because it's a permissionless protocol. And they, focus on, that vision that they care about. And that's really the only part that they control, is steering towards that vision. And I think what you just laid out there, you could probably create a really, really compelling like pitch. Again, I don't know what resources you need like to do this. Maybe you don't need capital, but whatever resources you need, I think you could convince other developers to do it in an open source fashion or go raise venture capital and take Counterparty to the next level. So yeah, my thought here is like, this is just a really unique opportunity to really do something awesome with Counterparty. And I think it's just kind of a distraction. Like SRC20, I agree, probably isn't the best implementation. And my guess is like a year from now, maybe some new thing replaced it or it got evolved or something. Like I think naturally that would have taken care of itself without some sort of like kind of big drama beef situation. I think you have to find what you care about. And if like what you just told me is what you care about, that is what I would focus on doing. I think that's the most productive kind of use of your time and probably the best output for Bitcoin and the future of our civilization, right? Like we need experiments like this to happen.
Yeah, your point on venture capital is interesting, and I keep hearing it because it's not that we have a lack of people saying, hey, Counterparty is awesome, you guys should do something, I want to throw money behind it. But as I said, I'm not the thought leader, and I don't want to be the guy who's Counterparty is different in that it was launched in a different way. Nobody owns it, and I don't want to take control of it. So yes, I maintain it. But my point is, yes, I want venture capital to come in. I want big business to get behind Counterparty. I want more stuff to be built. And Counterparty's always had like a marketing outreach problem because nobody wants to step into that void. And so if somebody wanted to take on funding and take on marketing of Counterparty and pitch it on, it's an open platform. You can do whatever you want. The code is entirely separate from the marketing portion of things. I'm focused on maintaining the code, but if somebody wants to get venture capital, start rah-rahing people around features for Counterparty and suggesting them, I'm 100% on board with that. As long as it's not a, hey, we put money in, now we control the features and we're going to tell you what going to happen with Counterparty, because that's never going to happen. It's an open protocol and the community decides, not big business that says we paid you for this.
Yeah,
but I definitely appreciate the feedback. Definitely, I do.
Yeah, love that response. Love everything you've been saying, J-Dog. We do have Skrilla up on stage. He's one of the original Rare Pepe artists, legend. He's been in space for quite some time. Just curious if you had any thoughts on the warfare, or if you're just memeing from the sidelines watching.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, from an artist perspective, I think it's all, I'm way more pro stamps. I don't really care about SRC20. But from a technical side, I can't really argue too much. I just kind of would say like Joe and J-Dog definitely have the best interests of, Counterparty in mind. Seeing a fork would be, pretty detrimental. And I think like if there was a fork, I think SRC is pretty fleeting probably. So like, will it be maintained in like a year or two when things die down on it? Like there will be that chance. So, I mean, I think it's just better to keep XCP what it is. But yeah, from an art's perspective, I mean, I love stamps. So I think it's, again, like even Counterparty is like used as like minting or tokenizing things and stuff. It wasn't meant for like what it is now even. So like we're already like hacking Counterparty. So I mean anybody's free to hack it, I guess. J-Dog's though, like, I mean, if you're just like vampire attacking the network without providing anything to it, it's kind of fucked up. Using it in, I don't know. I can see like there's going to be ways that consensus happens with Counterparty, social consensus. If a lot of the Counterparty people don't support it, they can't stop it, but they're going to be vocal about it. I think that's kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah, this is the first time in a while I've seen the Counterparty community kind of go through this civil war. Although I know it's not the first time this has happened. Going through the history of it.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see Counterparty develop more. Like I like Counterparty being like kind of like the underground like kind of community too. So I mean, I don't really care. In my opinion, people can do whatever, but I'm happy with how it is. And as it grows more steadily, I would love to see obviously more like things like Pepe.wtf and with some of the HNFT stuff has come and put, websites together, information stuff. So, I mean, that's all great. More block explorers would be great. Like even block explorers for stamps, block explorers for, popular directories, stuff like that. I mean, the more the merrier with all that stuff. I think bringing in development has always been a hard thing because it's not like a bunch of XCP somebody can grab and kind of like take control. I think it is kind of like harder to learn from what I understand. So you do have to kind of like really love the community to kind of get involved. I mean, Robot Love Coffee was in the audience a second ago. He's gotten involved crazy over the past couple of years, and having more people like him would be dope.
Yeah, I agree. Robot Coffee's a legend in the space. I am gonna call on. I see Sonic has his hand up. So first, Sonic, congratulations. Sonic had just left Unisat to go pursue his own endeavor. So first, congratulations on that.
Hey, thank you, Jake. But I'm still helping the team. I will be working closely with Unisat. And if there's any collaborations that you want to talk to Unisat about, or want to use the API for either BRC20 token indexing or some other services, I can definitely still connect you to the team. I'm still a big fan of Unisat. I love the founder, Lorenzo. I told him a month ago that I want to have a trial run with the team and himself. And I think after months, we both agreed that this might not be the best time for me to join the team. Maybe at a later stage, I could have been more helpful. It is a really tech-driven team right now, and they're heavily focused on product building and launching new features and building more cool tags on Bitcoin. They don't need that much marketing, actually. In fact, so I don't think I'm contributing enough at this point, and I definitely could use my time better doing something else. But if they keep growing and become multifaceted and they want to build a bigger team, I think my capabilities will be more helpful there. So I'm still looking forward to work with them. But yeah, right now I don't think it's right to still sit as the COO position because I'm not doing what a CEO is supposed to do. Yeah,
awesome.
That's pretty much it.
Well, congratulations, man.
Hey, Jake, can I say something real quick? Because
Yeah,
you
please.
mentioned a couple times that I offered to come on here and the other side didn't, and I just want to clarify that I don't think it's that we're talking about Mike in Space, and it wasn't like he was refusing to engage in a debate. I just think he's really busy. And I also want to clarify that yes, there's been a lot of back and forth between the Stamps and Counterparty community in the past few days, but right now everything is moving forward. The SRC20 devs have paused everything in good faith. We're all seem to be cooperating. There is no imminent fork of Counterparty. We're all cooperating now. So I think all of this drama is in the past and we're moving forward.
Fantastic. Yeah, I was excited to see that last night, that there had been a ceasefire.
I saw, I don't know, Mike in Space puts out like crisis averted, and I'm like, bro, details, man, details. I need details, bro.
Speaking of like super cool development with the Counterparty ecosystem, Adam and I hopped on a call yesterday with the Rare Stamp team, and those guys are some builders. The Universal, give them a follow. They seem very committed to building out a Stamp ecosystem. They'll be integrating Emblem Vault, which is going to be cool. We've been working with them pretty closely over the last few weeks to try to increase the awareness around stamps. They have a lot of cool ideas of things that they want to do. So they're definitely a big player to look out for. They came from the EVM side. They came from Ethereum. So they've been kind of learning through it, but they have a love for stamps. They like it. And there were some interesting ideas in the conversation. I don't think that have been implemented yet, but they plan to, and we're going to try to work with them to build out that ecosystem. So exciting stuff. Sonic, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I was raising my hand to talk about recent, just today, actually. If anyone's paying attention, the ORC20 protocol just came out with a indexer that's built by a totally random team that I've never heard before. And they launched a ORC20 indexer. You can actually go to this website called geniedata.com. I shared it in my Twitter post, and you can already see your ORC20 token balances. You can input your wallet and check all your token tickers that you deployed it. It is pretty cool. It's getting close to where BRC20 was probably a month ago. And so that's really exciting. I definitely have been giving them a lot of ideas on how to improve and on top of BRC20. And I think they have adopted a couple of them, and some of them are still in the pipeline. So personally, I might be biased here, but I think the ORC20 protocol is really cool in a way that they allow projects to have more flexibilities and more functioning in how you want to do with your token. I think it's a more project-oriented protocol as comparing to a more community-oriented BRC20, like decentralized issuance protocol. I see like two protocols have both advantages, but a key improvement proposal that I gave to the ORC20 protocol is that they should just index all the BRC20 balances, right? I mean, they introduced this new ID system where they just use your inscription number as the ID. So basically, they can index all the BRC20 tokens as ORC20 tokens. And if you check your ORC token balance, you will see the exact BRC20 token just show up, and with a ID number of the inscription number of the deployer. I think that would be really exciting, and that will get community adoption immediately, and a lot of support will go their way if they actually accept that proposal.
So, Sonic, could you explain, because you have a little bit more insight into this, what are the positives and negatives of ORC over BRC20?
Yeah, so actually, I give them another idea, which is reusability of the mint and transfer inscriptions. So when you mint, let's say, 1,000 Audis, ideally, you should be able to release that mint inscription as a sell vehicle for the same 1,000 Audi balances. You don't need to mint another transfer function to do that. And that will save a lot of waste on the Ordinals database and a lot of cost on the user side. And that will increase the liquidity of the token even further, right? You don't need to wait 3 confirmations or more to send or trade any token. So that's I think that would be a huge improvement to the token protocol that Domo came up with. At least the rule set, right? Even with BRC20, I think this rule set can be totally adopted with no hard fork. Basically, we can just pick a block height and just say, all right, let's rediscover any valid inscriptions in everybody's wallet. The token balances doesn't change, right? We don't change the balances. We just rediscover reusable inscriptions in people's wallet and just put a balance on top of that. And people will be able to immediately list those for sale or sending them for transfers without inscribing new inscriptions. And I think that's a key idea I want to give ORC20 and both to BRC20 as well, which can be implemented on the indexer side without changing the initial design. So yeah, and also with ORC20 protocol, they have introduced this upgrade function where you can actually change the initial settings of the token after you deployed it. let's say the SATS token, the SATS token that's deployed on BRC20 protocol. I think that token is basically made unusable for any project, right, to adopt it. I initially thought of doing a similar token for that ticker for some .sats names related things, but I later found out that the token requires like a couple 100 million to be instructions to be minted out, which is just outrageous. So if something like that has happened, then you could totally upgrade your existing deployer to a new rule set to basically make it reusable. Or, well, you don't really need to do that if you can just deploy a new one, right? Because ORC20 allows a duplicate of tickers, which is also very important for more projects to consider it. They don't need to go ticker hunting and trying to buy from somebody, which might not be even in the right specs. They could just deploy one themselves with their own rules, with a ID that's based on either the instruction or an ID that you pick that's not already taken. So the ID will be the identifier of duplicates versions of the same tickers, similar to ERC20. So I see more projects adopting ORC20 protocol to do their token launching, because they will have more capabilities to maneuver those tokens.
Go ahead, Dogfather. I see your hand up.
Yeah, I think it's a very valid point, Sonic. So in just a very simple burn procedure on top of an already deployed BRC20 would already fix some issues you have with sats and with some others. They just have a too large supply to be, minted out in our lifetime, right? And so I'm pretty sure we will see more of this in the future. And I think our title is saying BRC standards. Today we heard about BRC 30. I don't know whether we want to also capture that. It's brand new. What is your take on that? Is there anyone who is, let's say, familiar with that already?
Yeah. So go ahead.
That was issued by the OKEX team. I think that's a maneuver to compete with Unisat. I would think. I think they want to build their own dominance in a protocol that they have a say in, and because Unisat have built indexers for BRC20, which put the Unisat team in a really good position among the industries. I think OKEX want to do something to have some effect on that. That's just my speculations, though. But the protocol itself is a staking protocol. You can stake your BRC20 tokens to get BRC30 tokens. I think there could be some functionality that they will implement themselves on their Web3 wallet or on the OKX exchange that will give further utilities for the tokens that you already have.
Yeah, there's so many standards that have come up. I pulled up here on the screen for those that are watching on YouTube. It says a new protocol called BRC30 has been proposed. It's an extension of the BRC20 token standard that adds staking functionality to the Bitcoin blockchain. It's like BRC20, but with superpowers. And then it goes on with like a few graphs of how it works. I think I put out an article, or actually it's my pinned post, of like all these different protocols and standards that have been popping up over time. I have seen a few pop up that have proposed the idea of staking using BRC20s. I don't know if any of these will get adopted. It does seem like, though, that OKX, right, being a centralized exchange, is really kind of just putting their foot in the ring and saying like, hey, we're here to stay and we want to be a Goliath in this space. At least that's kind of like my feelings and sentiment around it, because I believe they were the first movers of centralized exchanges into Unisat. Is that correct, Sonic? I think they were the first partner with Unisat, right?
Yeah, actually, the OKX team have been working very closely in the early stage of building the indexers with Unisat team. As far as I know, I wasn't there when they're doing that, but I did hear from Lorenzo that the OKX team was very closely collaborating with Unisat on trying to come up with different ideas about building the indexers. And so, but they do have their own, I think, programs that they're building. And right now, I think probably they're in more of a direct competition with Unisat rather than a really deep collaboration. But yeah, that could change.
Interesting. Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day. If it's interesting that of being an exchange or being a marketplace like Unisat, but also being kind of like the de facto API partner for BRC20 indexing, because essentially you're outsourcing or you're giving access to build a competing marketplace. So I think it's kind of an interesting predicament to be in, because if you're Unisat, you can't. It would be a very bad look if you went and rugged, OKX of that API access. You could potentially lose a lot of customers or trust within the community itself. It's interesting. At the end of this post, it says, in conclusion, BRC30 is an exciting new protocol. It brings staking to the Bitcoin blockchain. It's a big leap forward in terms of what BRC20 tokens can do. I'm very interested in these like ideas of like BRC extensions where they're kind of like building on top of the already set standard. I kind of see BRC20 similar to like Bitcoin in a sense where it's simple and it's simple on purpose. And it's meant to have things built on top of it. Of course, there's going to be limited functionality with things that are secure, right? You still have to go through that kind of like Bitcoin or crypto trilemma of security, scalability, and decentralization. So there's always going to be that trade-off that no one's been able to solve yet. But I do like the extension of building on it because you have all these different marketplaces between Ordinals wallet and Unisat, and then the centralized exchanges and whoever else is using all the same API and indexing. It would be tough to really go build new adoption outside of that. I think the market's already spoken. So I'm really, really big fan of the extending protocols versus the competing, although I could be wrong. I'm wrong very often. And on the screen, for those that are watching on YouTube, I pulled up my pinned post that actually goes through all of the different standards that have been proposed, although a few of them have popped up since 2 days ago when I posted it. Go ahead, Doc, all day.
Man, Jake, 2 days ago, this is outdated. Get rid of this pinned post, man. 2 days. If you say 2 hours, I can get that. But 2 days, man, this is Stone Age stuff. No, I just had a look at all BRC20 1 or 2 days ago, so also decades ago. And out of these, I think at that point in time, there was 25,000 deployed BRC20. There were just, let's say, 20 or 30 that had more than 1,000 wallets, not holders, but wallets, a certain minimum market cap of more than a few 100,000 and some active trading. I mean, it was really like 2 dozens. So, and the vast majority is, let's say, in the top 3, top 5. In all the others, they have a very hard time to get traction. So we have Audi, we have OXBT and a handful of others. Everything else is basically not doing much. And I think there is definitely a need beyond pure speculation what you can do with these tokens. So you can have a very strong community and use then the token, to buy stuff and to mint stuff and, token controlled access to Discords and the like. But that's only with the very, very big communities. And I think thinking, very openly and experimenting with this type of staking or any other kind of use cases is really key, that we see a bit more than, just 2 or 3 that will survive, like the other meme tokens like Dogecoin and Shiba and Pepe and Ape. There's not that much more that is, really meaningful. So I'm really looking forward to further developments here.
Yeah, to see who wins is going to be interesting. I think BRC20 is definitely set in stone. And now you're going to start having these kind of like meta protocols. I think what's called like a meta layer or something like that. Or you have the protocol, which is ordinal theory, and then you have the meta protocol, which would be these standards, and then you have like a meta layer, I guess, which is like the business, something like that. It's impossible to keep up with. But just even going down this list, some of the other, I'm just going to read through kind of like the list of some of these other BRCs that have popped up. So there's another BRC20 staking that was created by BRC20 Labs. And you have BRC21, which is kind of like a smart contract version, which is created by Interlay HQ. You also have BRC21, which was an extension created by or proposed by Sol. ORC20. You have the OP standard. This one is actually super interesting, by Oshi Finance. That's more of they're trying to go full decentralization for DeFi on Bitcoin. You have things like the Bitcoin-based automated maker, which Anisat team's trying to do. BRC21, Smart BRC21, BRC21A, Generative BRC721, BRC721E. Like it just goes on and on and on and on. It's like it's so funny. And then moving past, I had to post or put in honorable mentions that exist on Bitcoin or are derived from Ordinals or BRC20. Right? You have Counterparty, Stamp Chain, Litecoin Ordinals, Doginals, Mordinals, Dogecoin Stamps, SRC20, LTC20, DRC20. Like it does not end. It's pure chaos what's going on out there. I have dabbled more into the LTC Ordinals, which is kind of fun, but I'll talk about in a second. Is there any other, Adam, what do you think of all this standard madness?
It's it just highlights for me that attention is the hardest thing in the world. And when you get attention, to maintain that attention is really, really hard. And everybody's just throwing out these standards and this sort of thing just to try and somehow spark attention. And yeah, it's really fucking hard. And that's honestly what makes what's happened with Ordinals all the more amazing. And, you know, BRC20s, I don't know. I was, as you know, somebody was talking, I wrote down like, you know, devs follow users and users follow money. And it's like creating something that people feel like they can make money at or is going to somehow enrich their lives in some way. It's really tough to do. And people are, now that they've seen, oh my God, I can create this in 5 minutes, you know, I should create one. And you get 100 creations. And, you know, right now, basically one of them's working. And we'll see how it plays out. Maybe another one will pop up, but this is what you get. You get kind of just this mass movement into insanity, man.
Absolute insanity. I do want to cover Litecoin Ordinals a little bit. I know a lot of people kind of roll their eyes every time we bring it up, but I don't know. It's kind of fun, honestly. I mean, it's a little bit cheaper. It's cool. I just like
it's a lot cheaper, isn't it? It's like pennies to launch.
It's a lot cheaper. So yesterday, I think this has like been the most game breaking thing that's happened to the space so far. Like I cannot underestimate the better. Somebody called Stack Wallet, they released a Litecoin Ordinals component to it or feature, and that's been the biggest infrastructure miss, is that there's been no Litecoin Ordinal wallet. And so going through it, and I have it pulled up here on the screen, and I'll pin the post in a second. You could see it has coin control, and so you can label the Litecoin Ordinals very similar to how Sparrow Wallet is, and that's really what it reminded me of. Just more of has a lot more features to it. And so I began thinking about like, okay, what's next? You start going down kind of like the things that have happened in the Bitcoin Ordinal space, and you're like, okay, what does Litecoin Ordinals have already? And it's like they have the LTC Ordinal theory, which is essentially just a fork. They have LTC20. They do have an inscription service called LiteScribe, which was created by Luke. And then they have Litecoin Punks. And now they have a wallet that you can. So
they've modeled the entire, you know, Ordinals infrastructure.
Kind of what Litecoin's like, right? It's always been that.
Yep. I pinned the tweet at the top if anybody wants to follow along with what Jake's talking about.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, now they have a wallet that you can safely store. You're able to, it's a little bit more user-friendly. So what's going to happen next? Probably a marketplace, a web extension wallet, some sort of like .namespace. Who knows? Maybe there's cursed Litecoin Ordinals, right? Maybe there's some defunct ones that similar to happen. And then maybe we get some of these like LTC standards. The bigger question would be, is there anything that comes to Litecoin that Bitcoin ordinals do not have? Litecoin does have the advantage. It has implemented Mimblewimble, which is kind of like the privacy component to it. I've read some tweets and articles that if they activate Mimblewimble, you could essentially have private NFT or ordinal transactions, which is, I think, kind of interesting. That's definitely on the farthest spectrum of kind of the frontier of this like ordinal space. But I don't know, man. I was having a lot of fun. It took me literally like an hour to transfer everything over.
But you said the wallet was pretty slick, right? It actually worked pretty well and stuff.
It's very, very impressed by that. I was going to reach out to him to try to get some more dialogue going, but I did message him and said that I like the feature. I was using Electrum before that, and Electrum is just it's awful. I hate using Electrum. Feels like it's like
really bad.
Feels like I'm using that Namecoin wallet.
Literally. I get some of the LTC 20s were, I know people were trading them OTC within the Litecoin Discord. So if anybody's interested, you can go in that Discord. I have no idea what they were trading at. I checked in like a week ago on what they were doing there. Did not get any, hold no bags, but you know, people were aping in because it was very, very inexpensive to ape these things for free, right? To mint them was very, very inexpensive. And yeah, who knows, man? Who knows if it, again, this attention economy, and can these guys get traffic? Yeah, seems unlikely to me, but you know, a lot of this seems unlikely to me, and yet here we are.
Okay, this is actually pretty insane. So I went to lightscribe.io and I went to the LTC 20 tickers. The number one LTC 20 token is called HUOB. Maybe it's like Huobi. 92,000 holders.
Crazy, bro. I mean, Luke told me, look, the Chinese have like grabbed onto this because, you know, literally it was like a penny you could mint these things for, right? And so people just were aping like crazy. You know.
Yeah, I did. So it's funny. I actually had I don't know if it was an Asian account DM'd me because I went and deployed. I guess I'm gonna share the news. I went like when Lightscribe had first came out, I went and scribed Jake again, just to toy around with it, and they came across it, and so they DM'd me. And he's like, hey, do you want me to put this in the chat and we could mint it out in like an hour? And I was like, no, you can't do that yet. I was like, I'm not ready. So it's there. I mean, you could go ahead and mint it. It was to toy it around. I was like, I don't want the same thing to happen. When I minted Jake on Bitcoin ordinals, it was just like a test, right? I was just like trying to see what the demand was and really expanding it. And next thing I know, now I still get messages. They're like, when are you pumping Jake again? And I'm like, oh, not ready. Not ready to
never,
go
bro. I'm never pumping it again.
Oh man, I do have some ideas, but it's still like the infrastructure isn't right for some of the things that I want to do.
Jake, when am I going to be able to stake my Jake token, man? I want to be able to stake it and farm and yield and
See, I did have this idea actually of because I did also deploy Jake on SRC20, and now that's kind of dead. I was gonna try to figure out a way to do like a super Jake token with the Emblem Vault, and
which is like a mix of all the tokens. Yeah,
put all the you need 777 supply of all three to mint the vault that you can then go do other things with, right? It's like there's so much types of experiments that you could do, which is fun. Another question, which maybe I'd like to hear kind of like this discussion around, is in the Litecoin ordinal space, it seems like it's pretty much confirmed it's going to happen. Is it going to be a Bitcoin ordinals team that integrates it, or are we going to see a new player natively out of the Litecoin ordinal space populate and take over? Right, that's a huge opportunity. I mean, it's a much smaller market, but those opportunities still exist. So it'll be questions. But good thing we got Ordinals Wallet on here, Randy, man. When Litecoin's ordinals.
GM. When are you adding
it? Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we still need to have like we have like the old Litecoin wallet in Emblem Vault, so we still definitely gotta figure that out.
Let me ask, is it a different wallet for Litecoin?
I think it's a Taproot. Yeah, so we have we have like the same situation that we had with the Bitcoin ordinals, where it's like the legacy Litecoin one.
Yep.
And I think that's what was so difficult, is that no one had used Litecoin Taproot or something like that. And you have to spin up nodes. So this wallet, the Stack wallet, it has nodes running and it shows you all the nodes that are running. So you could even do like Ordinals on this one and all kinds of stuff. It was kind of interesting to look into and to follow. I don't know, Leo, you got any Litecoin Ordinals? You explored that at all?
I've been watching Litecoin Ordinals a bit, but I personally have not. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. It's like I feel underprepared. Like, I barely looked at BRC30 coming into this conversation. It's just you kind of have to pick and choose what you like at this point. Like, it's just there's no matter how much time you spend. Like, I'm Ordinals wallet. Hopefully, we can talk about SNS in a bit. It's like that's something that maybe I find more interest in. I'll be looking into more. But it's like you have to find the few things that you care about, and everything else is kind of noise. Like maybe you need to be able to say one or two things about it, but I just, I don't know. There's so much crazy stuff going on every single day. It's so much, I'm just finding myself very spread too thin to like really get to spend the time I like just doing the degen experimenting that maybe I got to do in the first month or two.
Yeah, the Bitcoin Ordinals, it's so much more mature than some of these other ones. I like to try to go into between Litecoin and Dogecoin one and Doginals and see if there's anything different with Bitcoin, and then see if you can apply that to Bitcoin Ordinals. That's kind of like part of the reason why I go to explore there. It's just more for ideation.
Jake, you realize Litecoin was like the test net for Bitcoin, right?
Yeah,
yeah, totally, dude.
So like this totally makes sense. I mean, this is like excellent that people are like doing that, and I think we should try. To me, it's like maybe that's a good place to try curse inscriptions before we do it on Bitcoin, like for example. But yeah, we'll see.
Too late on that. Speaking of that, we actually have a big update, and I don't know if anybody has been watching the live stream. I added something to the bottom. So the bottom tickers, they always had the top 5 sales, and so now moving forward, I'm actually going to put the emblem updates as well. So just in case those that are watching, you can kind of get a little bit of alpha here. We have a lot that's happening on the back end, man. It feels like every day there's more conversations, there's more pauses, there's more like, whoa, what the fuck is going on over here? Right? Do we implement it? Do we not? So just a few quick updates and then we can move on. I did successfully test the migration portal. I successfully moved a Rare Pepe Legacy Vault to the curated collection. We've had a few successful tests so far. Took literally about 90 seconds. I realized afterwards I put 90 minutes on the tweet. People are like, what the fuck? Fuck that.
In the tweet, man, it's the slowest migration tool on earth.
It was super quick. It's literally a button that populates underneath under advanced operations. It just says move. You click move and you sign a transaction. It cost me $14 to do. And it literally populated on OpenSea. It was instantly. I was quite impressed. There was a few like UX things that I believe Shannon had to go fix, and then we're going to roll it out to the beta testers. And then once that happens, then it's the floodgates. We got 20,000 vaults to move over, and we're also working with. We've had some very interesting discussions of these things like MemeFi kind of idea. We've talked with a few different teams of how we can integrate Rare Pepe curated into their products. So those are kind of fun to see, because Rare Pepe it's such a large collection. It's literally, I did the math. It was like 200,000 tokens of just the cards that have 1,000 supply or less. So you need to find ways to distribute this into different ecosystems, whether that's putting them in different chains or putting them into different protocols, staking, whatever. So we are exploring actively those kind of things. And we also did receive the Rare Pepe artist and royalty information from Pepe.WTF, who's our partner. So that'll be integrated here pretty shortly as well. Hopefully, so the goal is to have that added by the time that we publicize the migration portal. And for those that don't know, that just means that Rare Pepe artists are getting a share of the 5%. First time ever that's happened. So we felt that it was very important to reward, the early pioneers. And so it's related to that specific card. So for example, every time the Nakamoto card sells, Rare Mike will be getting a percentage of those royalties because of their hard work. So that was pretty cool. We are in the early stages of an Emblem.finance UX UI upgrade. It's in progress. We've had multiple calls, a lot of discussions around kind of creating this new vaulting experience. The Emblem.finance, I'd learned this actually, is actually a fork of Uniswap that was created in 2020. So it hasn't been maintained and upgraded to the degree. So we're rethinking what a vaulting experience means. And so if anybody has any ideas or wants us to implement something into the new upgrade, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear some feedback. Again, I'm not a designer by any means, right? I'm just a guy on a microphone trying to build products. So any type of help would be good, but we are working with another team on this. We've updated our API documentation, so just keep following that along to link into the Emblem ecosystem. That's how Rare Stamps is integrating. We've been working with them, and we've been publicizing more APIs as we've been working with them so that it's up for everybody. We have a product releasing next Friday, a new product, and so I will tease it here. Adam's stepping back. He's like, "Uh-oh."
Ooh, I didn't know you were gonna go there, Jake. Oh, all right.
It is set to release next Friday, publicizing, and I think this will set a new vision for Emblem Vault, and kind of a lot of opportunity could stem from this, from the product. So I will save from that to say that next Friday, hopefully, quote unquote, we will be releasing a Cursed Ordinals curated collection. We have built our own API and indexer for it. It definitely took some time to build. We've also created, finally, this will be the first ERC 721 curated collection for Emblem Vault. So now we will have the ability to do curated collections for 1155s and 721s of any sorts. We are working with a creator to have an initial project there to ape once we launch it publicly. We're still deciding some of the mechanics around it, but it's a really exciting time because if you have a 721 collection, you can begin to theorize some of the other things that we could do with a collection from any chain, any of the 12 chains that we have integrated. So it's a lot of fun. And if you notice at the bottom, it also says we have redacted support will be coming also in the next few weeks. So I'll leave that there and give some updates as we go on.
Cursed Ordinals. Leo, I think you might have been on vacation when this was kind of like, I didn't know it got settled, but, and it's not settled, obviously, right? We had the guys working on this like indexer for like days to try and get it right. And I mean, whether it's completely right or not, I think is like a moving target of like what's going to be included in Cursed or not. This is really interesting, but obviously there was a lot of interest around the Cursed Ordinals when that inscriber was made public, when you could do it, and a bunch of us aped in it, you know, $150 per ordinal or per Cursed Ordinal. It was ridiculous. But I don't know what there were minted 70,000 in that first, 24-hour period or whatever. All the cursed Bitcoin punks, those guys spun up another website for cursed punks. So it's exciting, to try and get these out there and get a marketplace built relatively quickly. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Some may ask, and then I'll call on Sam after it. Some may ask, why Cursed Ordinals? Why is that the first one? There's so many things that are happening in the space. We noticed there's no support for Cursed Ordinals. I think Ordinals, well, I don't know if you guys had mentioned that you wanted to offer support too. So there's been a few teams that had mentioned it. We decided, hey, we'll try to give it a try. We'll build out the API so people can use it if they want to kind of follow suit. And we'll see if there's interest. You don't know until you give it a try. Sometimes it could be the game-changing kind of product that'll, just lift all boats and lift all tides. But we realize there's about 80,000 Cursed Ordinals out there with nowhere to sell. So building that API was tough. It was fun as we were building it. Watching the debate go on where they're like, you're not going to be able to sell these. You're not going to be able to transfer these. No, we keep these. Oh, Casey stepped down. Oh, the guy who stepped up loves Cursed Ordinals. So like, dude, Like I don't know what's going on, but we're gonna continue it just to kind of see. And if for Emblem, we're trying a new method too, and we're kind of pulling this from Ordinals Wallet. So thank you guys for kind of the idea of you guys have done a really good job at this of releasing a collection alongside a product. To me, noticing you guys do that was like such a genius idea, because in the past, Emblem's released some products, but there was nothing to use. It was kind of on the users to start vaulting it, where this is like, if you have a collection there, it kind of puts more ideas into people's minds of like what they could do with it. So like I said, we do have a partnering creator that will have an initial collection there moving forward. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, what's going on? What's up, Jake? Thanks for letting me up, man. Not to change the subject a little bit, but I want to talk about like BRC20. Like that's how I got into.
Bro, we just talked about BRC20 for an hour and a half, man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but I'm fairly new to the BRC20. I got into the OXBT mint. But my question was, I know there's the 4 ticks on the BRC20s. So does that mean that deployments on BRC20s are limited?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, there's a limitation to it, but you can use symbols and numbers. So theoretically, it's what, 4 exclamation points. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
Oh, you can use exclamation points?
You can use any symbol.
Any symbol.
Oh,
it's almost infinite.
Wow. Okay. Because I was trying to calculate like how many many.
Dude, it's like infinite times 2, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So instead of 1.5 million, it's probably 3.6 million, maybe possibly.
Well, I proposed the BRC21, standard protocols, so to include 1, 2, and 3 digits, but nobody bought into that protocol, so that's still waiting out there.
Okay.
Yeah, we just.
No, it's. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, man, it's pretty fascinating, bro. Because I've just been after that OXBT mint, BT mint. I was just trying to figure out what really is this BRC20 and how can be built on top of it. So I think we're really like more early than we think we are, especially since it's limited. That's crazy.
We're so early that when you look at the BRC20 trading volume, there's like maybe one token that's ever trading over $1 million in 24 hours. It's literally right at the beginning, right? Think of it as like the early counterparty days. Still a lot of experimentation that's been happening. Go ahead, Derp.
Did I miss the part where you guys are talking about stamps?
Oh, you missed the first hour. We even got J-Dog up here too.
Oh man, yeah, I was in the process. We're launching an interesting experiment on stamps where we're putting a bunch of layers for images into stamps, and then throwing a JSON that attaches those layers together as part of a collection, and then users are minting a JSON explaining which layers to stack up. So in effect, you get like a pretty decent quality image, and the mint costs like $10.
Is it like so? It's like a
go into the details, man, because I don't understand it from a technical perspective how that's even possible. Can you like give us a little bit of details?
Okay, yes. So let's say you're building a generative PFP collection, and your artist is making a bunch of layers in Photoshop. So you've got like a background, a body, all these layers, and in the stack up, the user, what they see is 7 layers stacked on top of each other. If I take those layers and I index them, I can make them very small. So I can put those on chain as stamps. So I put 60, 70 images on chain as stamps. Now the images that I need to make the final.
So you're saying each one of those layers is a separate stamp? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, each layer is a different stamp.
Okay.
So then there's a separate file, the collection file, which we're calling SRC 721. This is all an experiment, right? So who knows if it's going to get used by anybody. But the SRC 721 JSON file holds an array that has references to all of those counterparty IDs. So you have all the backgrounds in T0 of the array, all of the bodies in T1, all the clothes, all the hair, all that stuff in a separate array. So we have that file, which is on chain and tells us how essentially we can stack these things together to make an image. Then the user mints a very small file that holds a reference to the JSON file we just talked about and an array of indexes. So very small file. It's got numbers, usually less than 10, 6 or 7 of them, depending on how many layers. In this case, it's 7. And this file's like 100 or so bytes. So the user can mint this very small file that points at the larger file, that points at all of the images. And the end result is you can stack up and make a generative project. And instead of each user having to pay, you know, this, you wouldn't be able to put these images, like the full images, you wouldn't be able to put them in stamps because they're like 7 or 8 kilobytes. So even if you did shrink it down to where it's small enough to put in a stamp, it would cost like $1,000.
So okay, so you've done it in kind of like let me try and break it down for the monkeys in the audience, myself included. What you're saying is the person who's doing the project, let's call it like a punks project. You're saying they would mint, hundreds or thousands of different layers in the same way we would think of like CryptoPunks. It's a combination of different hair types. Those are each a different layer. Exactly. Different glasses. Those are different layers. Their head's a different layer. Right. And then the public would launch these very small files, and that would kind of create that individual punk based on all these separate layers. Is that kind of right?
You got it. That's the idea.
Cool idea, bro.
Driving the cost down for the people, and putting it on the founders. But
hey Derp, I have a question. I have this pulled up on the screen right now on YouTube, the generative BRC 721. Had you look at this, or this? It seems like it's modeled pretty similarly to this.
I did look at, probably about 2 weeks ago, I looked at some BRC 721 stuff, and I'm guessing that probably went into making this.
No, this one is literally generative BRC 721. It's almost to a T. Here, I'm gonna pin it to the top. Is by this guy named Jerry.
Okay, yeah, no,
what
I
did
not see that specifically.
Yeah, I pinned it to the top. What you're speaking on is almost identical to this that they're trying to do, and they've implemented this on BRC already. But it's awesome to see it on stamps. But yeah, I'd say take a look at it.
One question with this. Okay, so if I'm doing a project, right? And let's call it punks because everybody recognizes how punks work. And I generate these or generate the possibility. But there's really no way to prevent anybody from then kind of quote unquote minting or stamping one using my layers, right? In theory, right? They could just pull that information and create their own kind of stamp from those layers, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't really see that as a bad thing because right now everybody's putting their stuff on chain anyway, so anybody can sort of pull what they want. I guess this really lends itself to very quickly putting together what do they call those collections that are just like it but a little different.
Yeah, I mean, well, you could do something like that, and then it's like a public mint, right? Where then people could mint them, and then the first of each one would be the first, right? And that we've seen that.
So right now, today, this morning, actually, we dropped our project, which is Avame. It's anime avatars doing this, and it's currently minting, and just exactly what you're talking about. The first 2,500 are going to be part of the collection. The rest of them are going to be there, and technically, they still have the information necessary to make the images, but they are, we can all agree that they weren't the first 2,500.
Yeah, I just pinned your tweet to the top of the SRC 721. Super, super cool.
Very cool. I wonder how different it is from what kind of the parent-child relationship, I guess, would be. Derp, I don't know if you've heard about this on Ordinals, and it's been discussed, not solved as far as I know yet, but this idea of like a parent-child relationship. Have you researched that at all? And is that
I have not. I have this bad habit of just sort of doing what I want to do and not paying attention to what other people are doing, which kind of comes back and bites me in the butt sometimes. But
yeah, because people are like, Derp, I already built that. I built that 6 years ago. And you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah. It makes me feel dumb sometimes. Sometimes it just doesn't work out.
I appreciate the effort, though, man. This is pretty cool now that I'm understanding it better. Good job, man.
I don't know why, but I didn't even think about just taking all the standards and just applying it down to stamps, even though we just talked about this for Litecoin and for Bitcoin ordinals. Interesting. How difficult was it to build something like this? Or I guess I'd say, like, how difficult is it to build on stamps versus ordinals if you've dabbled in both?
I have only minted a couple of ordinals, or inscribed. Sorry, that's the words. I haven't only inscribed a couple of ordinals. I haven't really built anything on ordinals. But stamps, I mean, you're just working with counterparty assets, so it's the tooling is all there for you, and they do a great job of allowing you to easily grab the information in a way that's a lot more convenient than with ordinals. I mean, I guess now that ordinals is more mature than it was when I was first tinkering with it, I'm sure it's simple enough at this point.
Interesting. Also, kind of a side note, I know you are the Lenaji domain dev. Could you give us an update on that if you are still working on it?
An update.
Actually,
So,
give us an update, because I know people are interested in like the online websites or the websites that are on chain, I guess you would say. I think that's interesting to talk about, because people have been talking about it on for ordinals. I've heard it in a couple different spaces. So I think it'd be cool for you to share how you did that with Lineage, because I think it might carry over to ordinals in some way.
Okay, so with Lineage, essentially what we did was, this is another one of those situations where I was kind of like making something in a vacuum that probably was not the best thing to do. There's a group of people working on a project for the Web3 prefix. I can't remember what the EIP number is, but they're trying to put information in state on the Ethereum blockchain so that you browse on it. So the latest thing that we did with Lineage was we made a wrapper for that, essentially. So if you have a Lineage domain, you can create a text record for that Web3 protocol. Like I said, the number escapes me. It's EIP 38 something. And you can browse essentially by using the smart contract that is on the Ethereum blockchain. You can browse to that Lineage domain, and it will grab the information that was stored in state and return it as if it's sort of like a server returning information. And when the Web3 protocol goes live, that will be functional. So we built the smart contracts necessary to make that happen, as well as a kind of cool thing that we did as well was made a sort of immutable content delivery network by taking by writing a separate contract that does the translation for ETHFS assets to this Web3 protocol. We turned ETHFS into essentially a CDN, and a permanent CDN as well, because we on Lineage you own the domain. So we take the domain, we route the domain to that smart contract, the ETHFS contract on the Ethereum blockchain, and then we burned that asset. So now that record can't be changed. So when the Web3 protocol, starts getting implemented in browsers, and there is one browser, a guy named Nand has a browser called EVM browser, which allows you to browse the limited number of resources that are currently available. There's not a whole lot of people that put stuff on here, but he did make a browser that allows you to browse it, and now you can browse any asset that is on ETHFS through his browser, because of this layer of smart contracts that we put together to attach Lineage to that protocol, essentially.
Interesting. Adam, do you want to just give them a brief overview of what Lineage is?
Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
I say Lineage.
I say Lineage.
Jake puts it in the French version.
Okay.
I'm cultured. I'm cultured, man.
Yeah. So Lineage was basically one of the first, the first smart contract on Ethereum that, well, the first basically, but what it was trying to do was do basically what ENS does, right? Which is this domain names or name service. And, you know, as you look back in HNFT or historical NFTs, like this has been almost from day one, like an issue that people want to solve. And so, yeah, Lineage was one of the first efforts at this. And you can still go and grab domain names on, or grab names on Lineage. You know, it's a few bucks. You can grab one. A lot have been claimed. I don't know, 500,000 have been claimed, but you can claim longer ones, different ones, whatever. They're still there. And Derp has done amazing work to try and, you know, create use cases for it. And one of these is this idea of like, you know, even with ENS, like, can I use my ENS to create a website with it and tie it together? And that hasn't really been built. And you realize, I mean, Lineage for me kind of clarified, you know, so much around it is like you have to build all this infrastructure and stuff to get these things to work in different ways. And I think just to tie it back to Ordinals, that's what's so impressive about Ordinals is that so much has been built in such a short period of time to support Ordinals. And that's really incredible. And but yeah, Lineage is one of these cool, you know, pieces of history that Derp's done an amazing job to try and add functionality to. And so congrats, man, and thanks so much.
I appreciate that. We're trying. Nobody seems to care, but
well, I mean, look, nobody cares until it's something they want to use and something that, you know, either makes some money or, you know, is cool in some way or something. You know, it's like to get traction like that is really, really hard. We've talked about it a bunch already on the show.
The thing you got to do with these historical stuff is you just got to wait for when the NFT ecosystem is just much larger, because there's always going to be a certain percentage of people that are interested in history. I would guess maybe 5%, right? So if we're going to say NFT industry or market grows to 50 million or 100 million holders, right? That's 5 to 10 million people who'd be interested in history. And there's maybe 2 million or 1 million assets. Yep. Total. But Lineage is cool for this. I don't think this was mentioned. It was deployed, I think, 6 or 7 days after Ethereum mainnet was deployed. So it's considered the first or possibly one of the first NFT collections ever. It's a domain. It's very similar to what's happening right now on Ordinals, where you basically go into .namespace and you get that and you own it forever. That's the same thing. That's the same way that Lineage works.
I mean, I was thinking, or we were talking the other day in a space, maybe Jake, I was with you or Leo, or I don't even know who, but I was saying how big a deal it was that wallets were already integrating, you know, the .sats and the .namespace names on Ordinals, like how amazing that was that wallets are already integrating them. Like, you know, we know people in the space realize how long it took, you know, for ENS to get traction in wallets, like a long time and a ton of work and millions of dollars. And, you know, I mean, we were talking about Lineage, like if we could get the .og, you know, names in wallets, like how amazing that would be. And so it is incredible that Ordinals and, you know, the .sats and all those, you know, .btc, .xbt are already integrated in wallets. Is just, it's massive. It's huge. It's incredible.
Yeah, so we even have Ordinals wallet up here because we did want to cover this actually. Kind of kick the door down a little bit. .sats was trending. So it was I think they're the ones that pioneered the first in, first out kind of social consensus. That was turned technically or something like that. And so you started seeing people inscribing .sats and there wasn't really a use case. And then you saw a few entrepreneurs come in or creators and they said, hey, what if we create .ord? There was also there was like another one. And so Ordinals wallet just said, here's a service where you can just go mint .anything. And it caused a little bit of FOMO. People started inscribing. I have here pulled up the tweet, everything from like .xbt to .pepe to .gua, .ow. There was like a handful of them. It seemed like .xbt and .pepe were kind of like the ones that were taking the lead from the side. But when you compare these, .sats I think has like over 200,000 inscriptions, and .xbt is at like, I don't know, 8,000. I think Pepe got to like 2,000 or 3,000. So .sats clearly is the standard here. And I had this like original thought, or this thought after they had done it, was this idea that now that it's out in the open, people are just going to go start minting any namespace. So what's likely to happen, at least what I'm theorizing, is you'll see maybe 1 to 3 main kind of namespaces take over Bitcoin. Obviously, you have .sats, you have .btc, and then my guess was .xbt would be the third one. That's just preference. I also claim Jake.xbt, so clear bias there. Clear bias there. But then the rest is you can just create a namespace for your own community. And so the example I was using is for like Bitcoin frogs, they could create .ribbit, right? Or if they did .frog. And it adds a unique layer from like the community level where every community has kind of these inside jokes or these like specific words that they use, right? Like On-Chain Monkeys uses Rise, and Ordinals Wallet is GUA. I don't know how you pronounce that or even what it stands for, honestly. I just see you guys talking about it. Gua. I just see you guys posting it. I had no idea. I just see posting it all the time, right? So if Ordinals Wallet rolled out .ow, Gua would probably be like the most valuable one of them all. So I'd been kind of just thinking through that idea to see whether that actually happens or not. So my thought was, OXBT was trending. I was like, they're just going to do .oxbt, right? And so now everyone can kind of identify with whatever BRC20 ticker that they want. And I thought it's kind of interesting. It's very similar to like Lenagia, as we were just explaining. Leonidas, I have your Leonidas.xbt that I managed to claim. So you didn't get front
safe, my man. You are safe.
Yeah. I started. We've gone through this so many times through the historical space. When there's like a mad rush, it's like, you know what to do. It's like if you want something to succeed, you have to be able to go reserve certain namespaces for certain people that are the leaders in the space. Because if there's no adoption and some people just go squat on it, then nobody's going to care about it. So I went, I got Adam.xbt, I got Leonidas.xbt. I tried to get Trevor, it was gone already. I tried to get BitGod, it was gone already. I got a few for a bunch of friends.
Dude, not all heroes wear capes, brother.
Yeah, it was funny too, because Trevor literally first thing he posted was, wow, you guys fucking claimed Trevor.xbt already. Like, I'm already sending this to zero.
Squatters.
Oh, fucking squatters though.
No, but you think about it, these were like, look, after the Ordinals started minting, just to like revise history and think about it, Ordinals went off, people were Ordinals, and once this thing hit, the namespaces were huge, and the namespaces then led into BRC20. But for, I don't know, maybe weeks, seems like weeks, but it might have been days. These things were massive.
Yeah, they're getting a lot of attention. I actually own a 3-digit .sat, so it's kind of a random story how I'd gotten that. But Randy, I'm curious if you guys have seen or what's your guys' perspective on the back end of the dot namespace. Have you been getting like a lot of questions, or just kind of like what's the activity been around it?
No, but like since the day we released, we released with like 15 or 12 of these TLDs. We've had the ability to like transfer and send and resolve directly, resolve those addresses and transfer directly. And then I saw today that nobody even knew that. So I just did the announcement. I pinned it up at the top, but it's like, it's really just like about education and stuff like that. But the responses that we've gotten from this have been overwhelmingly like positive and excitement. Nothing really like, there was a couple of guys who were like, Ordinals Wallet just killed .sats, but then .sats came out with like a whole thread about why this was inevitable, and they knew that somebody was going to do it eventually. Just generally, like the simplicity of the protocol is really cool and interesting, and you can already, like I said, resolve these addresses based on these names. So there's a lot of opportunity for like social growth around this thing, where like you'll start to see .xbt names in people's Twitter names. Maybe you could go to ordinalswallet.com/ and then like Leonidas, and it would be like his, based on his XBT name, and it would like show whatever collection he wants to put up there, if that's like a specific wallet. Like there's a lot that we can actually do with this. It really is like Web3 namespace, and it's really simple to integrate, and it's really simple to inscribe, and it's really simple to kind of like understand. So I definitely see this kind of opening up a whole new level of like social ability. Like, I really hope to see more like imagine Noster picked this up, something like that. That would be really cool.
That would be. Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, so I think we talked about this on a space like a week ago, Randy, and I was wrong. I was thinking you still had to do all the JSON stuff, and of course, like I think it was such an obvious thing, right, to get rid of the JSON. Like you don't need any of the other stuff. So genius of you guys to kind of do that. I thought that was really clever. Like, you know, being involved with like Derp and Lineage, and you know, I love the idea of like not having to rent your assets. Like you truly do want to own an asset, right? I'm, you know, personally a big fan of being able to own something forever, permissionless ownership. But I was wondering, and this is still the kind of main thing, my main question on like the dot names or dot stats, you know, how are we gonna, you know, upgrade this protocol? Because I think we do have to upgrade or in some way create a system to allow resolution on chain, right? Because, you know, at the moment it's just a one-way resolution, and ideally like pretty much every other DNS system in crypto has a one-to-one mapping where you can specify your address being connected to one specific dot stats name, and it's done on chain, right?
Right. So like,
yeah, have you thought about that?
You're basically saying instead of just automatically resolving to the address that it's inside of.
It's more if there's an address, how do I know the dot name for that address? That's I guess what I'm asking. We have
so it's always the wallet that it's within. So like I have randy.xbt in the same wallet as ow.ow or ordinalswallet.xbt. You could send to any three of those and they would all go to the same address.
Right. Yeah. So I'm thinking the reverse lookup. How do I take an address and know the domain for that, right?
Yeah. So what you would do right now is you would just search that address and look for the inscription that has the JSON or the, you know, the inscription that inscribed the.
Well, I think right now it's off chain, right? I assume you guys are keeping an index of what people set as their address. Like you're displaying one specific dot name.
Address, so right? It's whatever's it's the index of the it's just like a basic inscription indexer, and then just reading it as like whatever. If this is like a valid SNS name that's within this wallet, then you can send to that. So it's actually probably like a really simple API. I'm sure our API and our indexer for this doesn't have that much code.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally get that. It's more just like, for example, with ENS or .sol with Solana, you know, you can basically take an address and know that, hey, you know, as a, you know, one of the 1,000 dApps in the Solana ecosystem that integrates with .sol, or one of the 1,000 dApps in Ethereum that integrates with .eth, you can look on chain and see, hey, you know, this address just connected to my site. Here's their username, right? And that's on chain. Right now, that's not on chain for dot names.
I mean, it kind of is, right? Like the name itself is on chain. We're reading the chain in order to index those names, and the names are automatically associated with
the address. I totally hear you, and I think you're totally right. Maybe I'm not.
I think I'm just confused about the question.
Yeah, maybe think about it like this. Say someone has a dApp in the Bitcoin ecosystem, okay? And somebody connects their wallet address to, you know, Xfirst to their dApp. Right now, all those apps display a long, you know, 30-character address. On Ethereum, when you connect your address and you have an ENS name set, you don't ever see your address. You always see all the clients in the Ethereum ecosystem show a .eth address. If you set it.
Okay, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So I'm talking
the actual act of setting it as your default name.
The reverse. Yep.
Yeah, is a front end thing right now. Yeah, for sure.
Well, didn't you guys do that? Like when I go on to Ordinals wallet, it says Jake.xbt up in the top right corner.
So that's basically what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
that's
they did it already.
Final piece of the puzzle. How do we get that data on chain? Because if you get that data on chain, in my opinion, you now have what is a core basic.
We need to talk to SNS. I mean, I'm sure it would be really simple to just add it so that like if you know this wallet owns this name, you can do set, you know, randy.xbt. Like that's the whole inscription.
I agree, Randy. That's why I'm asking. I want us to do that upgrade.
Randy, fix this, please.
Extra little piece of functionality that users are going to expect.
Yeah, that's super base.
Yeah, I think we'll get there. I mean, that also, for everyone's listening, right? That also presents probably like a multi-million-dollar opportunity for somebody to come in and be like the de facto infrastructure for the dot namespace. If you go and support, you could basically be like ENS Vision. You can go and spin out the clubs for the marketplace for 15 to 20 different dot namespaces. Then you can provide that on the on-chain API for everyone to link up to, and then you could probably add a bunch of other functionality on top of it. So whether it's going to be the .sats team that does it, or or an infrastructure marketplace like Ordinals Wallet, or an entrepreneur, it's there.
I mean, we could do it, but I just DM them to see if they're interested in just making it real, like within the SNS, because we are using SNS. Like if we were to go and change the rules, we could do that. But I don't know. I'm new to this whole game where it's like, oh, this protocol already exists. So it's weird if like you guys issue a new version, like for example, the .btc thing. Like obviously, I want to do .btc as like an SNS name because it's really simple to do it. But there's like the pre-existing protocol. So like there is always this little political. We can go and make our own decisions, but we don't really know how that affects us like politically, which is kind of annoying because we just kind of want to do everything. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
Randy, you've never struck me as someone who cares about the political. I think go create a body collection right now on Bitcoin.
I've read a lot of
the internet.
Ayn Rand. I'm a big fan of Atlas Shrugged and her philosophies on capitalism and work. So yeah, I just I never really got involved in the political side of things. I just kind of want to do what I want to do, and we'll see what happens. But it's always just like, also being the guy who's on Twitter and like really on the ground floor and talking to all our customers every day. Like I'm like so, ear to the ground all the time. It does definitely take a toll,
Agreed. Yeah, for the most decentralized blockchain in existence, there is a high degree of social consensus that needs to happen before meta protocols get laid out.
Bitcoin is insanely political.
Yeah, it's crazy. True Nick, you've been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
No worries. Like I think I didn't expect to become a speaker, but thank you for taking me up here. This was a topic that we were discussing this morning with Kai Gold Echelon. He had an amazing amount of input on the whole thing about these SAT names and all that. I'm personally not a huge technical person, but I just noticed from the ENS hype that this could be something big. And we were discussing this morning the fact that ENS names probably won't take over the Bitcoin names, even if there would be a possibility for some sort of a way to use them over here. But then we were discussing the fact that there's like a possibility that there's some way of doing this through stacks. And I'm not for me, it is just exciting. It's like I saw the whole ENS hype come true on the ETH side. And now on Bitcoin, it's like, which of these names is going to be the most popular? Are we going to see, people focusing more on the .btc or .sats? And it is just a wild west right now. And I can't believe that Ordinal Wallet, like you guys are building this as we go and in a quite fast way. Like there's some hiccups being on the website, but you guys seem to always come through and make it work even better. And now with the whole BRC20 and SAT names excitement, I'm just waiting to see who's coming through with the best platform. Like before this morning, I didn't even know that there's like 3 types of SAT names. Like apparently the data is different. But yeah, I mean, I'm learning, I'm building here, seeing where this goes. And thanks to people like you, I'm learning quite fast. Like all I have to do is just have my notifications on. And Jake Bit, this was the first time I'm in your space, but I have my notifications on you as well right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we're just really grateful for, we came in, we made a big splash. Nobody really knew who we are. Then it comes out that like we were previously working on Twitch, and it's just like we get a lot of hate, but we get also so much love, and honestly, just I have a lot of gratitude for people like you and our customers, and also for guys like Jake and Leonidas who are also building really cool stuff in the space. You got to check out Emblem Vault and Ordinals as well. And these guys, instead of being like, fuck these guys, Ordinals wallet, they're new, we don't know them, they're not like politically correct. They've invited us to come and talk on their podcast and be involved in their spaces, and it's just the being received in that way by other builders is also like, it's just something that we're also extremely grateful for. Obviously, guys like Chartful Monkey, and there's like a ton of fun about us out there, and we don't have a lot of history with all these new customers that we have, and so like just it's this constant like push and pull of like trying to get as much loyalty as we can out of our customers, and make sure that all their assets are their own, and that they're always safe, and that our website's always up, and it's hell.
And like that's like it's not even possible with the sudden amount of people coming in. Like, of course, there's going to be hiccups, and you guys have been managing it extremely well. Plus, having spaces where you explain the situation, and I think that transparency that you're bringing is quite fresh and very nice.
We've always been big on like build in public. Like I'll release designs that I've made where developers aren't even working on stuff, just to see what everybody thinks about it. That's kind of always been our philosophy: build in public, and then people will kind of see that and follow along really closely. And I really love that kind of attitude of like, just kind of like, your customers aren't just your users aren't just your users, but they're like your friends, and they help you make business decisions that they like want to see on your website, and stuff like that. So definitely the transparency thing is really important to us, but also just like, we're here to build a real business. And what does that mean? That means we're not going for like short-term profits and quick, like, get in and get out type of attitude, but to sustain customers and user base over time, and to earn trust from these customers over time, as opposed to like, I don't know, let's say we built it and we never touched it again, like maybe something like what OrdSwap does. It's not really our philosophy. Our philosophy is like, continue to improve, continue to get loyalty through updates, and through like, if we go down, we always come back, and just kind of keep everybody on this constant, like, because it's scary, right? Using Bitcoin and using like web-based, browser-based wallets and marketplaces and stuff, you don't really know what's going on behind the hood. And so our goal is to not only just keep everything up and running, but also to give as much responsibility and remove as much trust on us as we can possibly get. And then, I mean, Ordinals Wallet is a DEX. It's a decentralized exchange for NFTs. And people don't even really know that, so.
Yeah, but I think that's the cool thing, that we're kind of learning together. Like I come here and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Then I have, Leonidas is sharing an immense amount of information on how this ecosystem works and is building, and like with the cursed inscriptions coming through, like I even inscribed those, and I had no clue what's going on. And someone just came to me that it's like the backside of an ordinal, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll get these. And like sometimes it doesn't even matter, but like for us to grow together, we need to have both sides, like people like you who understand how it works, who build it, who make it work better, and then people like me who are like simple, like user friendly, that understand that 1 + 1 is 2, and you guys are yes, good for you, and then you can clap, and everyone is happy. We have a simple customer using something extremely complex that they don't understand, but in a way they want to use it. So we have ideas, we have execution, and of course, when we have multiple people coming in, there's going to be some problems that neither knew that existed. And then we have some systems maybe collapsing or getting stuck for a while, but then we just fix it. And from my understanding, this Bitcoin network has been up and running for a very long time. Apparently there was some forking at the very start of it. I'm not completely sure what that means, but as I understood, it's like every fork kind of removes something unnecessary. So, and now that it hasn't been forked for a very long time, it seems to be extremely stable. So personally, that makes me quite bullish on any technology that works on this blockchain or like on Bitcoin, because to my understanding or how I see it, it feels secure. It's like bulletproof. If you make it work here, it will work always.
Yeah, and what's cool is like, even if you're new, the more you learn about stuff like PSBTs, the more you realize how amazing and secure it really is. Like, you can't make a purchase on Ordinals wallet. Like, the money won't get sent if the NFT doesn't, like the money won't get sent to the seller if the NFT doesn't get released to the buyer. It just doesn't work like on the blockchain layer. So that stuff is just really amazing. The technology that's been built around all of this stuff and the protocols that everybody's built, and just the general developer ecosystem on Bitcoin is like, it's going to be like one of the most amazing case studies, over the next 5 years, because there's no funding. There's nobody is going to say, hey, oh, I'll give you $20 million to make BRC20 or to make PSBT technology work. It's just people doing stuff because they know that this is going to be cool and it's going to work. And that, to me, is ultimately what drives me to stick around and stay, focused on the stuff that we're building. It's like, when you see the ecosystem outside of the stuff that we're building thriving the way that it is,
Yeah, I'd say coming into Ordinals, if you're not familiar with Bitcoin, it'd be like moving to New York. It's like it's one of the oldest cities. It has a thriving ecosystem. There's so many diverse communities and cultures across it. It could be, first quite confusing, but it could be it could give you some anxiety because you just don't know what direction to go into. There's already been, a decade of culture wars that's existing. Whereas if you go, if you were in 2021 and you went to go build on Solana, it'd be like moving to like basically a new city. It's like there's nobody there and you're basically building it from the ground up. Here, it's like more that you're maybe building your own infrastructure, but you still have to network with everyone in the ecosystem. And there's a high degree, as we mentioned, of a social consensus here, where you do unfortunately have to know how some of the politics work to be able to build with it, to know who to stay away from, or who's willing to work with you, what other people are very tribal. It's
yeah, and I like that analogy with the New York City. It's also like, if you like get, the more involved you get and the more you learn about like the protocols that just came out, like for example the SNS stuff. The moment I looked at that, I was like, oh, this is obvious. You can just make a dot anything, and all you have to do is just inscribe the name, and you can have it. And you could have done this, like you could have inscribed Bitcoin.xbt or Satoshi.xbt the moment the SNS protocol came out. It's not really specific. It was just a matter of who's going to index that name and and what products are going to go in and index those names. So if you're like following like closely and reading about these protocols, then you realize that the limitations that these interfaces and indexers they're putting on you are exclusively like centralized decision making happening by the product makers. For example, Unisat had .unisat right away. That was just using the SNS protocol the same way we do with .gm. But nobody knew. Nobody even knew what was going on. Like you could have sent inscriptions to .unisat or .stats names for a long time on Unisat, and no one really even cared until we released this stuff. There's similar limitations on the way that they've implemented BRC20. And anywhere that there are limitations like on these protocols, on these interfaces, you look at the protocol and realize that there are actually no limitations on the protocol layer underneath it. And it's a huge opportunity for builders. And also cursed inscriptions. There's really no support for cursed inscriptions anywhere. I know Jake and these guys and Emblem Vault guys are working on stuff in that direction. There's also like stamps and all of that stuff. So the more you learn about these things, like the more opportunity there is for you to kind of be first in these new worlds. And so like, reading about this stuff and like figuring out how to understand what it really means is a huge leg up, not just for product builders like myself, but also for just regular collectors.
And I think that's like the coolest thing, because like I'm working also with a Bitcoin team, or like they're building on Bitcoin stuff, and I'm just kind of coming with these ideas that I've seen work on Solana or NFT or ETH or other chains. And like I personally came from Solana infrastructure to ETH, and then when I finally got to Bitcoin, I was like, wow, this is actually pretty simple from a user point of view, and feels more secure than the other places where you actually have to go through all these contracts. And it kind of felt weird because I've kind of gotten used to the sketchy contract side, and your wallet might get drained, and on Solana we had the dusting thing and whatnot. And then over here it's like, this is kind of simple, but then again, because it's kind of a wasteland where people are just building, it's also like strange, but feels homey. But like right now with our team, it's like if I come up with something, they kind of instantly know if it's going to work or not, which is kind of strange to me. But apparently people like you with the computer, you are very smart, and I should definitely learn how to code it, because it just seems like or like what my friends always says, that nerds always win, and I would love to be a nerd. So
The nerds always win. Adam, what are your thoughts on that?
I think nerds very rarely win. Marketers and brand people win. But that's just, I'm tired and I need more coffee.
The cool component to this is the whole ecosystem, is there's really no bad idea to try to implement. Somebody had messaged me the other day about an idea that they had, and they'd asked me if there was they're like, is there an influencer ordinal chat? And I was like, I think there's one, but I'm not really in it. And he's like, well, I have an idea to, I think it's like the Sigmas or something like that, right? Isn't that the one that you guys are in? I don't know. I'm not a Sigma. But I was like, you never know what can happen if you take this idea. And this person was like, yeah, I kind of want to create my own, but tie it into ordinal somehow. And I was like, dude, go for it, man. There's no bad idea. I mean, look at what's happening on Ethereum right now. You never know really until you try what can happen. And that's kind of what happened, how BitGod got really big, is he started that Sigma chat or something and connected with the right people at the right time. And look where it's gone since then. Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, I agree with what a lot of y'all are saying here. I mean, I think to kind of summarize kind of what's magical here is that you have these two groups of people working in tandem to create just rapid innovation. So we have this permissionless kind of building ecosystem going on where you don't need to ask for permission. You just literally go do something. So one of the groups is developers. The other group is, I'll call them, early stage investors or venture capitalists, except they're retail venture capitalists. So there's an army of thousands of people on Twitter who are constantly scanning all day long, looking for anything even remotely interesting to go speculate on. And that ultimately, when you pair that with hundreds of these developers just trying crazy random shit, all of a sudden, if you try .sats and as a developer, you could have created that in a literally BRC20 was a Twitter thread. So Domo creates a Twitter thread. The degens are all over it, right? So these retail investors are just constantly scanning for interesting stuff. And as soon as they latch onto something, that's your signal that hey, maybe there's something interesting here, right? And then more builders come. I'm seeing the .name stuff and that, interests me because of the attention that it's getting. People kind of often say that, retail investors don't know what they're talking about. Retail investors are stupid, this kind of thing. The reality is, if a crowd of retail investors like something, there's probably something to what's going on there. When it's a bunch of people super excited about something and really passionate, that's really, really good signal for a builder to go build there. So yeah, it's I don't think if builders are just working in vacuums or working in a silo without the feedback from all of the thousands of people on crypto Twitter who are will actively invest in something if they like it. If that wasn't the case, I don't think we would know exactly what to be building or what direction to be building in. But because there's that awesome feedback loop, right, of you just put out a Twitter thread, either people are interested or they're not. If they're interested, you build more. If they're not interested, you stop building and you go to the next thing. You get thousands of awesome experiments, right? And I think that is so healthy. And that environment is just going to totally just annihilate any sort of environment where you're picking the winners or you are saying this is what we have to build and these are the kind of few areas to build in, you know, it's not possible to get like a Twitter thread to turn into a, you know, $500 million protocol in 1 month without this environment. And it's really magical true that there's people out there, you know, like yourself. And, you know, I play kind of on both sides of this, I guess, but it's amazing that feedback for builders. Like if you are in this space and you're a builder, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to be on Twitter at least an hour a day, like doing what Randy's doing, listening to the feedback that people are doing, because you could go heads down for a month and come out of that work and build something that absolutely no one cares about. What you should really be doing is just sending out a tweet and seeing if anybody retweets it. And then if they retweet it, maybe that's something to work more on. If they don't retweet it, then probably don't work on that. You don't have to go down these like long building, you know, tunnels of like, you know, building some, you know, crazy thing behind the scenes. Like just do really incremental stuff. And like Ordinals Wallet's launched like 20 little experiments over the last couple of months. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. That is definitely how I would be approaching the space as a builder. Like listen to the thousands of degens out there. They're actually really, really great at kind of signaling to you what you should be working on.
Yeah, deal flow happens on Spaces and Signal happens on Twitter and tweets. It's kind of like how it works. I do want to propose one final conversation before we wrap this up, going at 2.5 hours, because this could happen by the time we have this conversation next week. The degen army of Ethereum and Bens and Psyops and Loyals are making their way to Ordinals. I don't know if you saw this, but Ben.eth minted. I did like I don't know, it was like an NFT collection of some sort that they turned to Ethereum tokens. Then they're doing a 10,000, well, 9,000 actually, 9,000 NFT teleburn into whatever his project's called, Redacted Orange or some Burnt Orange. I don't know what the hell it's called. It's going to onboard 9,000 people. I mean, regardless if you like the guy or not, and whatever crazy shit is going on over there, people just sending money to each other for some reason. Is that potentially like a good sign? I mean, we just discussed how Bitcoin is like New York City, right? There's no way that he comes in and overshadows the entire thing of, you know, tens of millions of people who are existing in this city, but he is bringing a crowd with him. So is it subtly beneficial that he's going to onboard 9,000 people or whatever, 5,000 people in one go? Adam's shaking his head over here. What are you thinking?
Not the best way to onboard people. I think for BRC20 fans or whatever, or Ordinal fans, and people who are in the space, I guess the idea now is like, can this pierce into mainstream and have like a true Ordinal summer, like or a BRC20 summer? Like, I think, you know, that for that to happen, you know, maybe something big has to happen, and maybe it's a scam, maybe it's who knows what it is. So getting that attention to bring kind of retail investors and traders in, is it a bad thing? I don't know. I mean, look, if you're buying his crap or sending him money, like, we can all agree, dude, you deserve to get rugged at this point. Like, it's well known. So, you know, whatever. If people want to throw him money, go for it, you know.
Hey, interesting. It will be interesting to see. We had discussed this a little bit. I think I was in one of the spaces this week. You know, the Ordinal space is kind of going through a slight correction now, and maybe it's moving on to something else. Maybe it's not. But this now is the time for education during the bear. We've gone through a few different hype cycles, and so now during this downtime, while the price is correcting, right? It's like in a bull market, a crypto bull market. When the number's going up, nobody builds anything, because it's all you got to do is try to capitalize, you know, on the profits, and less stuff gets built. And then in bear markets, things get built. People learn what's going on. So maybe during this down cycle, or at least the one that's happening right now, right? Those people who move over, how many of them are going to stay? And are they coming purely for profits and then they're going to leave, or are they going to be entered into the ecosystem and then be like, hey, wait, maybe there's more opportunity here than I had previously thought. And so then we need to be able to not attack them as being, you know, degens under the Ben ETH army, but we need
He has an army. Holy shit!
we need to kind of like have open arms to the ones that stay with education. You know, that was kind of the downside that happened in the historical NFT space. That was kind of the burden for a while, is that those people who tried to enter with the wrong information were combated quite aggressively with saying that their idealism is wrong. And I have a sense, maybe even slight fear, that could happen here, of saying like, hey, we don't want you guys because you guys are all idiots, you know, in essence.
Well, hopefully not. And hopefully the space is so young still, we don't get that kind of like, you know, and I don't think that's going to happen, because the reality is HNFT space was very much, you know, contested. A very kind of niche type of person too was early the HNFT space, while this is far more of like a, you know, NFT degen sort of vibe to it, you know, very much, you know, that kind of personality. So I don't think so, you know, but who knows? I mean, who knows? It's going to be interesting to see. That's for sure.
I'd be interested. I'm interested to see 9,000 people teleburn at the same time.
Oh,
that's gonna happen. Oh, Leo, were you gonna say something?
I was just gonna say, like, having been through the whole historical NFT thing, and just I've become more and more cognizant of how important culture is, and setting a correct culture early on is just critical to the long-term health of an ecosystem. I mean, I think literally on one hand you have, you know, I'm not talking about the historical NFT space here, but imagine the most toxic communities in like crypto, right? And then imagine like the most welcoming, positive communities. Long term, people are always going to gravitate towards the positive, welcoming communities who are excited about the tech, who aren't focused on attacking other people. And I've been very much vocal, and I've made it very clear since February, like my number one priority here is to establish a culture on Bitcoin where developers are excited to come here and they're encouraged, and you can try literally any experiment. So maybe I personally don't like Ben, you know, coming over here and doing this stuff, but he absolutely has the right to do that. This is a permissionless open thing. And yeah, like we have to have a culture where we're not like the maxis. Like the maxis are like the antithesis of what we want to be. Like we really do want to be just like encouraging open experimentation. And when we saw the kind of misprints situation happen with Bitcoin frogs, the naked frogs, right? Mm-hmm. That was the first real time where I felt, you know, we lost our way a little bit. People were advocating for delisting the collection on marketplaces, like people who were Ordinals people who a week before would have been, you know, tweeting about permissionlessness, nothing should be taken down. They flipped the switch so quickly when the monetary incentives changed.
So crazy, right? It is crazy to watch in real time.
Crazy. It's crazy. So we have to keep a culture of just basically a culture of like focusing on what you like and not focusing on what other people like, I guess. Yeah.
So maybe I need to pre-write a thread so that when it happens, it's like a welcoming thread. DJs, you're still loved here, although you might have lost all your money. Here's 5 other ways that you might be able to make it back.
Come to the bend, stay for the Ordinals, man. Yeah, there you go.
Hey, I couldn't agree more, Leonidas. I think you said it perfectly. It's like everyone's trying to control everything all the time, and we need to start to really push this culture where anyone can do whatever they want all the time. That said, I gotta go. Yeah, that's my final statement. Gonna have a meeting here in a second. Thanks all for having me up, and I appreciate you, Jake, and Leonidas, and Adam, and Emblem Vault. Shout out to Emblem Vault. Shout out to Ord.io and everyone who came up and spoke. I'm out.
Shout out. See you, Randy. Appreciate it. I'll probably talk to you tomorrow or something on another space, as always. Yeah, I'm actually, we're actually about to close it up here too. I'm hopping on a space with Bunzi in 30 minutes to talk with Liquidium. So that'll be in 30 minutes to learn about some borrowing and lending on Bitcoin. And DLCs is an interesting companion to PSBTs, right? We're just throwing out all kinds of acronyms now. Distributed log contracts, I think that's what the name is. It's very similar to Emblem Vault, actually. Not as much functionality, but pretty cool. It's like the if this happens, then this happens kind of early primitive smart contract that was created in 2018. Nice. So that'll be cool. Any final words from anyone? Adam, what do you want to say to us as we head out on a Friday night? First
Bro,
Friday.
my head's exploding. I'm excited for next week, though. Emblem's going to roll out some stuff, and it's going to be exciting to do that. You know, the moment we discussed cursed ordinals, what I was calling the lost ordinals, got me very excited from a collectability standpoint. You know, in the ordinals kind of overarching history, I think it's going to be interesting to talk about these cursed ordinals as like this movement of like, you know, the growth of ordinals into a full-fledged protocol and how it kind of got there over time. Cursed ordinals are going to be this nice little like piece to it. So it's kind of cool that we're going to be doing a little something around it. I think it's going to be fun.
I'm excited now that we have the ERC 721 curated collection vaulting standard. I tweeted about this recently. I said, I'm just ready for the point where both of those, the 1155 and 721 contracts, are just fully automated, and we could just start deploying curated collections as new technologies are emerging, right? To give them a marketplace. You get a wallet and a marketplace essentially in one, which is just like such a key piece to start off any type of new protocol. It encourages so much more experimentation when you know that you don't have to build a wallet and a marketplace afterwards. You just put the protocol out there and people can find some liquidity for it. And then after next Friday, we have potentially, I'm going to leave this here. I'm not going to say any more about it. I think something that could completely change the Ordinals ecosystem. And how
what?
I cannot underestimate this. I was in our Emblem chat yelling that this had to be done.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we might be onto something. I'm very confident in it, and we've been working pretty hard on this idea. So that'll be coming. We'll have probably more information for it about
next week's show, man. Pump it up, bro.
Pump it up, dude. Pump it up. True, did you have some final words? Saw your hand up.
I had actually a question that I actually remembered, but I saw that you're closing up, so I'm gonna leave that to another time.
Next week,
thank
man.
you for hosting this space. The next week, maybe, yeah. And yeah, just thank you. Like, this was an amazing experience. Thank you for letting me speak here. Thank you for hosting these spaces, and I'll need to become a regular here. That was amazing. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, we host this show every Friday. This is actually episode 20, so 20 straight Fridays. I can't believe that's already a thing. So noon Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific, or wherever you are all over the world. Yeah, we cover everything here from collecting, Bitcoin, Ordinals, Litecoin Ordinals, Dogecoin, historical NFTs. We're all historical NFT guys. That's kind of where our foundation in the NFT came from. So a high degree of collecting over flipping, although there is some flipping strategies to it as well. Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, I just want to end on the final point because I think this has been a theme throughout it's crazy we've been going for almost 3 hours. I think it's super important to really just understand and internalize the fact that in a permissionless network, you can't control everything. You should really just let developers build what they want to, even if it's objectively a terrible idea in your head. Because, you know, Counterparty clearly is like going through this kind of moment here. And I would just say, like, you know, we went through this moment in March where Domo tweeted this thread about BRC20, and Trevor and I were like very specific about like making sure that in this moment where Domo is kind of getting bashed, that we kind of showed some support just for the experimentation. And I'm not trying to take credit. Like, a lot of people showed support. Like, my point more here is that, let's say the more maximalism of shutting down experimentation had won out. I just want you to kind of think about how different of a spot the whole Ordinals ecosystem would be in right now. Had that kind of maximalist culture kind of won out over Ordinals and said that people can't do these like fun experiments, it would be a very, very, very different situation right now. So I just want Counterparty to kind of think about, you know, you might be an incredibly intelligent engineer that thinks you kind of understand the technicals and ins and outs of everything. But the reality is, it's like, you just have to kind of let it go. Let people build their crazy stuff, even if it's really a terrible idea, because you have absolutely no idea. You have to humble yourself and realize you really don't know, you know, what's going to be the next big thing. And we absolutely have, you know, precedent on that over here in Ordinals. And I want to make sure that, you know, Counterparty, the next big thing that's going to happen on Counterparty has the opportunity to happen, just like BRC20 had the opportunity to happen here, because it's night and day difference where that single little kind of thing took the ecosystem.
Well said.
Best way to put it out. All right, guys, it's Friday. It's summertime. We're at the beginning of Bitcoin summer 2023. Everyone enjoy your Friday. Make sure you're safe. If you go out on the weekend, make sure you tip your bartenders and waitresses. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, you guys.